Chapter 1350. There was really a vast world above, and it was not that they had reached the ceiling. This news, for these legendary masters, was simply great news. Only God knew that some of the peak legendary realm experts were immersed in boring training every day. When they could not see any hope of advancing, the despair of having no purpose in life was torturous. Some of them even felt that life was boring. Wang Sheng understood the feelings of these people. This was clearly the boring state of playing the game to the top, and there was no task to do. And the old Taoist gave people at level 50 the hope of reaching level 70. Old Ancestor Ling Su gave an exact answer. There was still a way above the legendary realm. Although the old ancestor did not say what realm he was at, Elder Tang and the others had their own eyes and brains, and they could judge that the old ancestor was definitely more than the 10th realm. In other words, a long time ago, old ancestor Ling Su had already known that there was a way above and had already practiced it, but he kept it a secret. No one dared to ask why old ancestor Ling Su kept a secret. The old ancestor was not a person without a backer. Even if there was no one behind old ancestor Ling Su, with such a powerful realm, few people dared to touch him. The people of the Gan family were almost crying. Back then, their family actually sent a group of experts to attack Wang Sheng and old ancestor Ling Su, intending to kill old ancestor Ling Su and capture Wang Sheng alive. As a result, everyone was caught in one fell swoop, and it was announced that those people met a large group of experts from the old Supreme Lord Temple. Now thinking back, what kind of experts should be used to support them? Old ancestor Ling Su alone could kill all the experts that were sent out. The vast majority of experts were excitedly thinking about how they should break through, how they could pierce the ceiling above their heads. Of course, it was absolutely impossible to ask old ancestor Ling Su about this matter. Even if they dared to ask, the old ancestor would not necessarily answer. How could the old ancestor easily tell others such important key information? A small group of people thought more. Since old ancestor Ling Su had already broken through to this realm, why didn't he explain it in the Dao sects? It seemed that there had never been any news in the Dao sections. So when did old ancestor Ling Su break through? Even though they knew that there was a path up there, no one knew exactly how to get there. Elder Tang knew that this was the best opportunity. If he missed it today, he might not have the opportunity to consult ancestor Ling Su again. He simply gritted his teeth and did not care about losing face. He kowtowed 3 times and asked ancestor Ling Su, "Ancestor, please give me some pointers. We are very grateful." Elder Tang wasn't the only smart person. Everyone outside the camp heard Elder Tang's tearful plea. Perhaps Elder Tang had done it on purpose, using his loudest voice. "Please give us some pointers, Patriarch. We will be eternally grateful." More than 1,000 legendary masters outside the camp knelt on the ground and repeated this sentence loudly to ancestor Ling Su. With the earnest requests of so many masters, even if old ancestor Ling Su did not want to disclose the news, no matter how much he wanted to keep it to himself, he would have to think about it a little. This was a blatant attempt to force him to abdicate. The masters of the Dao sects were furious. In the underground palace base, relying on these thousands of legendary masters, they wanted to force old ancestor Ling Su to reveal such a big secret. What were they thinking? Was there really no one in the Dao sects? However, before a large number of Dao sects masters could vent their anger, they were stopped by the smiling ancestor Ling Su. "There's no need to hide it. It won't take too long. In fact, you should be able to figure it out by yourself." Ancestor Ling Su reached out to Elder Tang in front of him. "Get up. Since you want to know, I can tell you briefly." Elder Tang also knew that he was a little presumptuous this time. In the end, it was actually a big offense, but ancestor Ling Su let him go so easily, let him get up, and promised to give pointers. Elder Tang was so happy that he wanted to jump up. As long as ancestor Ling Su finished giving pointers, Elder Tang would become the great benefactor of more than 1,000 masters outside. In fact, it's very simple. You have all entered the core of the 1,000 despair and felt the aura inside. Stay inside for a period of time, and then go out and concentrate on cultivation for at most 1 or 2 years. Basically, you can reach the edge of the promotion. Ancestor Ling Su's golden mouth was like jade. Whether it was the masters outside or the masters of the Dao sects, they all listened quietly. This was a once-in-a-lifetime master solution. Only a fool would disturb the old ancestor at this time. Go in and feel the aura and concentrate on cultivation to reach the edge of the breakthrough. No one had thought of this at that time. In fact, it's not a good idea to advance inside. The old ancestor seemed to really want to give pointers. He even said these things clearly. It's best to go outside. If you really want to take a shortcut, the Grand Master's concert is the best choice. The Grand Master's band, which was already incomparably important in the hearts of all the masters, immediately rose to an unprecedented height. They believed that from now on, people below the 8-stage realm would no longer have the opportunity to enjoy the performance of the Grand Master's band. As for how your soul is going to break through, Ancestor Ling Su paused. The anxious expressions on the faces of a large group of legendary masters were overflowing. Looking at this, the old ancestor suddenly laughed. Actually, a long time ago, someone has already given pointers. If you have the heart, you will know after thinking about it yourself. What was this? After selling the suspense, he didn't give an answer. Only killing and not burying? It was unknown how many people wanted to go crazy at this moment. However, there were still many people who were willing to use their brains. The old ancestor's words were actually very detailed. The old ancestor would definitely not say the specific content directly. If it was them, they would probably do the same. To be able to remind them to this point, it was already the old ancestor's mercy, who had given them pointers before. The old ancestor did not continue to speak. Looking at this situation, the old ancestor definitely would not say anything more. They were all legendary masters, and they were all people who cared about face. Everyone, under the leadership of Elder Tang, bowed to Ancestor Ling Su and thanked him for his guidance. Subsequently, all parties, under the leadership of their respective leaders, quickly returned to their respective stations and began to study what Ancestor Ling Su meant by someone had already given them pointers. The messenger bird sent the letter. The big and small forces began to track it down. When did anyone give them pointers on the promotion of the soul? Under the efforts of countless people, in less than 2 days, basically all parties had results. Excluding the ordinary promotion of the soul, they specifically looked for those incredible and impossible ways to promote the soul, and everyone really found a batch. Basically, one thing in common was that Wang Sheng had once sold such a method, and Wang Sheng was also the one who had the best relationship with Ancestor Ling Su. Was it really Wang Sheng's method? Chapter 1351. Back then, when Wang Sheng first escaped to Carefree City, he publicly sold the secret of upgrading his source spirit. At that time, all the major families participated and wanted to know this secret. However, some people remembered the situation back then. After Wang Sheng made a joke, Wang Sheng announced that his source spirit was actually a part of a source spirit that could be upgraded. So it could be upgraded. Now that all parties racked their brains to recall, they suddenly found that it seemed maybe the joke that Wang Sheng made at that time was not a joke. At that time, everyone treated it as a joke, because Wang Sheng said at that time, as long as there was firm confidence, firmly believing that he could advance, his source spirit could also advance. Was this possible? Obviously not. However, now that everyone carefully pondered it, they found that the content that they had always thought was a joke was probably true. Wang Sheng had actually announced the method to advance his source spirit a few years ago. This reality made many people not know how to describe their feelings. It was the kind of feeling that there was obviously a golden mountain right beside them, just that there was some dust on it, but it was thrown away like garbage. It was as uncomfortable as it could be, as sullen as it could be, and they wanted to slap themselves in the face as much as they could. Was it necessary to have firm confidence? Basically, it could be confirmed that there was no mistake. Other methods were simply unreliable, and this was the simplest and most practical method that was closest to what old Ancestor Ling Su said. How many people had a feeling of wanting to cry after knowing the truth? If they knew it would be like this, Why would everyone be trapped in this realm every day, unable to see any hope? For a time, countless experts were in an extremely excited mood, discussing with the leaders of the various families whether they could go to the city first and listen to the Grandmaster's concert. Especially a group of experts at the peak of the legendary realm. They had recently felt that their own spiritual chi had begun to have some magical changes. Perhaps this was a sign of advancement. This time, the leaders of the various parties were in a bit of a dilemma. According to reason, these experts at the peak of the legendary realm could sense the changes, and with the guidance of old ancestor Ling Su, they could advance, which was absolutely a good thing for their families and sections. A legendary expert and a 10th degree expert were definitely not on the same level. However, the problem was that the various families were at a critical moment in their exploration of the bottom of the lake. It was said that many of the experts inside had more or less suffered internal injuries. If these reserve personnel were to be taken away at this time, what would happen to the people inside? There was no other way. This kind of decision could only be made by the family head. The news from the camp supervisor's side didn't go out for long. The experts inside quickly learned about what happened outside through the opportunity of rotating inside and outside. They also knew that old ancestor Ling Su had pointed out that there was still a way up. This time, even the group of experts inside were a little uneasy. What would it feel like to break through the peak of the legendary realm? Could it be that now that his realm had increased, he wouldn't suffer any internal injuries while exploring the bottom of the lake? No one knew what was wrong with their bodies. No one in this world knew about the occupational disease of divers. So everyone unanimously thought that the decompression sickness was an internal injury suffered here. Every time they dived, the expert would have to rest for at least 5 days to recover after coming back up. After all, they were still in the central region of the grounds of despair. Even though the weather had returned to normal and the ice had melted, the ice beneath them hadn't completely melted yet. There must be other arrangements. It was normal for experts at the peak of the legendary realm to be injured. If these experts at the peak of the legendary realm could improve their realm and enter the 10th stage, then wouldn't it be easier to explore the secrets here? This problem seemed very simple. Wouldn't it be fine as long as a few experts were sent to test it out first? There was no need for all the experts to go. It was extremely simple. The various parties in the capital had originally arranged for experts to go, and they were also experts who had entered the core of the grounds of despair. At this time, the great grandmasters had already made a big round around the 8 major vassal states. It was said that they had also collected a lot of folk songs and composed a lot of new songs. Since Wang Sheng wasn't around, they would publicly perform in the new theater in the capital to listen to the reactions of all parties. This was a rare opportunity. Originally, all parties had rushed to divide the quota. At this time, they didn't send those 8-stage experts, but directly sent the experts at the peak of the legendary realm who were in charge of the capital. The experts at the peak of the legendary realm who were in charge of the capital were also the veteran experts of the various parties. It could be said that they were the first batch of experts to enter the legendary realm and had been at the peak of the legendary realm for a long time. They had all experienced the baptism of the aura in the glacier basin. In fact, these experts were only a step away from the 10th stage experts, just like the 3 great priests in the past. When everyone instinctively felt that the legendary realm was the end, they certainly wouldn't have thought that there would be a breakthrough. But when someone reminded them and showed them the facts, their thinking immediately changed. The 3 great priests saw the power of the old priest who wasn't very successful. Later, after receiving Wang Sheng's reminder and knowing that the old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was even higher, they strengthened their confidence and broke through in one fell swoop with the help of the great Grandmaster's concert. These experts at the peak of the legendary realm were actually the same. They only needed an opportunity to poke through the ceiling. Ancestor Ling Su's advancement in front of more than 1,000 legendary experts was this thin needle that poked through the ceiling of common sense. Wang Sheng's reminder that year also became an incentive. In an instant, these experts had already begun to show signs of qualitative change. The great Grandmaster's concert became the final push to complete the qualitative change and breakthrough. When the great Grandmaster's band finished playing their newly composed songs, the experts from all parties began to enter the final breakthrough process in an orderly manner. From start to finish, it added up to a full 5 days and 5 nights. In this world, there are more than 10 10th-stage experts. To be honest, in the first experiment, the number of experts who advanced compared to the performance of the great Grandmaster's band were not many. However, it opened up a wonderful world to all parties that they had never imagined before. It turned out that there really was a path ahead, and it wasn't faked by ancestor Ling Su. The path of cultivation was unprecedentedly long. As soon as the door to a new world opened, the news spread to the various vassal states, and the experts' thoughts immediately changed. Since there was such a higher and more wonderful world, why not promote more experts on their own side? The more 10th stage experts there were, the more confidence they had in unlocking the core secret of the place of Thousand Despair, right? One must know that just to explore the situation at the bottom of the lake would probably take a few months, enough to promote a large number of experts. In the place of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng calmly watched the various parties mobilize a group of legendary peak experts to the capital in an orderly manner, and a smile also appeared on his face. Chapter 1352. With so many experts leaving the land of Thousand Extremes to go to the capital at this time, what other possibility was there besides using the Grandmaster's concert to advance? Wang Sheng used the communication channel of the Laojun Temple to send a message to Mei Er. He asked her to convince the Grandmasters to perform twice a month in the 5,000 capacity theater for 2 months. After that, the Grandmasters would go into seclusion to compose new songs. This opportunity was hard to come by. Who would be willing to miss it? Moreover, Wang Sheng didn't believe that the major clans wouldn't be tempted by such a great opportunity. In the past, the Royal Grand Theater had a capacity of 1,000, and the number of people was limited. Now, they were going to perform 4 times in a row in a theater with a capacity of 5,000, which meant that there would be 20,000 people. Wang Sheng wouldn't believe them if they could hold back. Everyone felt that having a high cultivation level was everything. Even if they couldn't solve the problem, the difficulty would be reduced because of the increase in their cultivation level. Under normal circumstances, this was common sense, and everyone would think so. However, this was the core of the land of Thousand Extremes, a place that defied common sense. Wang Sheng felt that once one's cultivation level surpassed the peak of the legendary realm, there would be some places that one wouldn't be able to enter. Don't ask Wang Sheng how he knew this. This was purely a hunch. Of course, the little person with combat awareness also helped a lot. Wang Sheng was not the only one who firmly believed in this. Even the old Taoist did not doubt it. In a land of Thousand Extremes, Wang Sheng's hunch had never been wrong. How could the major clans sit still when there were 20,000 people to enjoy the performance? Moreover, the Grandmasters had also announced that they would stop performing in seclusion after 2 months. The next performance would probably be a year later. The major clans in the land of Thousand Extremes tacitly stopped searching and quickly made an agreement that no one would cause trouble for each other. After that, the experts of each clan flew to the capital. The experts here were all in the legendary realm. Apart from the necessary guards in the camp, the rest of the people hurried on without stopping. Even the guards here knew that they would be replaced in a month at most. Then, they would rush to the capital to listen to the Grandmaster's concert. There were 20,000 slots. Even if each of the great clans had 1,000 slots, they would only get 8,000 slots. The remaining 12,000 were from the small feudal vassals, small sects, the royal Taoist sects, the royal treasury, and the godly might prison. On average, there weren't many from each family. What's more, other than the legendary experts, wouldn't the 8th-stage experts take advantage of this opportunity to break through to the legendary realm? Don't look down on the fact that there were plenty of slots. Everyone was still scrambling to get what they needed. Fortunately, this was the capital. All troubles were resolved outside the city, and no one dared to bring them into the city. Of course, there were a few exceptions. No one dared to snatch the quota that they should have. Needless to say, this was the royal family's territory. Regardless of whether it was for the sake of the host or the organizer, The royal family had to be given a certain quota. The other was naturally Duke Chongqing's residence. Without Mayor's help, how could these great grandmasters know who the people from the big families were? Even if Mayor came forward, the great gurus still respected Wang Sheng. If the places of Duke Chongqing's mansion were robbed, would the great gurus still play? The last one was naturally the Taoist sections. Ancestor Ling Su demonstrated to the experts in front of the ground of despair what was called a realm beyond common sense, and even gave them pointers. This was equivalent to a great kindness to the world. Whoever wanted to make things difficult for the Taoist sects at this time didn't need to send out the experts. The spittle of the whole world could drown them. From the core of the ground of despair, they could reach the capital in at most 10 days if they sped up the speed, and all of them were legendary experts. Along the way, it was also enough for those who found that their bodies had internal injuries while diving to recuperate. They rushed to the capital to rest for a few days, and just in time to receive the influence of the great guru's concert. Basically, all the families had such a plan. The first performance was also sent out a group of experts with the strongest cultivation. If it was only Ancestor Ling Su who advanced, then the shock brought by it would be earth-shattering, but it would not be enough to stimulate everyone. After all, there are not many geniuses like Ancestor Ling Su. However, just 20 days ago, in the performance of the great guru's band, dozens of experts at the peak of the legendary realm were promoted. It was said that among them were the 3 great consecrators of the royal family. 3 or 4 people from all sides had successfully entered the 10th stage realm. With so many successful cases, it had basically been completely determined that as long as the experts could reach the peak of the legendary realm, all of them could be promoted. During the waiting period, the experts who had previously been promoted tirelessly explained to the experts of their own families the situation when they were promoted at that time, including their mood and cultivation state, in an effort to give them some substantial help. The experts who arrived later and those who did not manage to advance last time all behaved like primary school students, listening to every detail seriously and honestly. Advancing to the 10th stage realm was completely different from before, and the families had no ready-made experience. However, when the few people who had advanced in each family talked about the same details, they all spoke the same words. That is, they must firmly believe that they can advance, must believe that their own soul can eventually break through, and must not be limited by common sense. The experts who had failed before had also realized their problem. It was precisely this trust that they had. They hesitated at certain critical moments and did not even know how to imagine how to improve their own soul, so they were unable to advance successfully. Comparing the two sides, the group of experts discovered that the key to advancing was actually the method of promoting the soul a few years ago when Wang Sheng was still unranked. Wang Sheng had already pointed out the key to advancing a few years ago, and it was laughable that everyone thought that Wang Sheng was joking. Now, looking back, that group of big fools actually included themselves. No one would complain that Wang Sheng did not say the real secret at that time. He once opened his mouth and said the most real method of advancing, but unfortunately, no one believed him. So who could be blamed? There were more than thousands of legendary experts gathered in the capital, but the capital was as quiet as a calm lake. No one dared to make any noise at this time. Whoever dared to find trouble at this time would be the enemy of these thousands of legendary experts. They did not need to make a move. Just the release of their aura would probably scare that guy to death. Finally, under the expectations of all parties, the Grand Master's concert was held as scheduled. The first 5,000 legendary experts quietly entered the big theater, with anticipation and excitement in their hearts, quietly waiting for the Grand Master's performance to begin. There was no accident. When the first legendary expert began to advance, there was a chain reaction of people behind him. One after another stepped into the ranks of advancing. Chapter 1353. The beauties of the Grand View Garden, as well as some of the outstanding guards and maids from Duke Chongqing's residence, were able to enjoy the Grand Master's concert in batches. Although they did not advance, with so many experts at the peak of the legendary realm advancing to the 10th stage, it was a perfect body baptism for them. Even if they did not advance, their cultivation base soared and the benefits were innumerable. At this time, the difference between entering the core area of the place of thousand extremes and not entering the core area could be seen. As long as it was an expert who advanced, basically all of them had entered the core area of the place of thousand extremes and felt the strong aura inside. Those who did not advance, or were one step behind, did not have the opportunity to enter. After today, the capital was a scene of revelry and excitement. Thousands of experts at the peak of the legendary realm advanced to the 10th stage. From now on, the legendary realm was no longer the end of cultivation. How could it not make all the cultivators rejoice? Even for those ordinary legend rank experts who had not advanced to the 10th stage realm, with the help of the great Grandmaster's concert and the help of so many experts who had advanced to the 10th stage realm, their cultivation base had risen by a large margin. There were even many people who rushed to the peak of the legendary realm. The Grandmasters were resting and preparing for the next performance. The experts who advanced from all sides were also consolidating their realm. At the same time, they could not wait to explain their advancement experience to their companions who were going to participate in the next concert. In just a few days, the experts in the capital came to a consensus. That was, the 9th stage was no longer worthy of being called the legendary realm. Since there was already a 10th stage above it, then at least reaching the 10th stage could be called the true legendary realm. As for the original 9th stage, it was better to call it the 9th stage, lest there was another 10th stage above the legendary realm, which sounded very awkward. This statement was unanimously approved by all the cultivators. Even Carefree City changed the ranking of the world's experts in a short period of time. In the future, the 9th stage would be called the legendary realm. Many people actually knew that Ancestor Ling Su was definitely not just at the 10th stage. Under the suggestion of the 3 imperial consecrators who advanced to the legendary realm, the 11th stage was named the legendary realm. No one dared to think about anything higher than that. When someone reached that level, then they would think about how to give a name that would shock the heavens and make the gods weep. When the news reached the underground palace of the Tao sect, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were drinking. When they heard the news, Wang Sheng almost laughed out loud. Old Taoist, you've been cultivating your whole life, but in the end, you've only reached a numerical level. You don't even have a nice name. Wang Sheng laughed and made fun of old Taoist Ling Su. Aren't you the same? The old Taoist did not want to be outdone. He laughed and said, it wasn't easy for you to get to the legendary realm. In the end, people said that one more level is the legendary realm. Aren't you also in the numerical realm? His words left Wang Sheng speechless. After clinking glasses with the old Taoist, Wang Sheng said in a self-deprecating tone, so be it, the digital realm it is. Anyway, they won't be able to get in even if they level up. I'll just piss them off. The old Taoist shook his head. The old Taoist admired Wang Sheng for being able to trap a large group of people outside so easily. However, even if Wang Sheng did not dig this pit, those people would still advance by hook or by crook if they knew that there was a realm above the 9th stage. There was no need for Wang Sheng to deliberately dig a pit for them. This time, Wang Sheng just wanted to stir up trouble at this key point. It could be said that the timing and location had come together. Thinking of this, the old Taoist suddenly became curious. He asked Wang Sheng, say, the ice below hasn't melted yet. What exactly is inside? I don't know. Wang Sheng shook his head. If I knew, why would I work so hard? Old Supreme Elder, the ancestors didn't say to come in and take a look. There's no record of anything. Those who cultivate don't even know about the world's major events. You guys should just die of laziness. This kind of thing, if the Taoists were to rush forward, would the Taoists still be the Taoists? The old Taoist gave Wang Sheng a cold snort of disdain. He then asked Wang Sheng impatiently, there's no one inside now. Why don't you take the opportunity to go in and take a look? I don't know how to go in. Wang Sheng had nothing to hide from the old Taoist and directly told the reason. The old Taoist saw that Wang Sheng did not seem to be joking. He pondered for a moment and turned his head to Wang Sheng. Let's go out for a walk. Wang Sheng nodded. The two of them leisurely carried a bottle of wine and left the underground palace's campsite. They entered the place of Thousand Despair. Under the protection of the man-eating ant army, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist sat in a comfortable place. As they drank, they told each other about what they saw at the bottom of the lake. Wang Sheng had nothing to hide from the old Taoist. It was just some solid ice. The old Taoist could not enter. However, the old Taoist was knowledgeable and could still give Wang Sheng some ideas. Such a situation? The old Taoist frowned as he listened. There were 25 strange places, and it was not the distribution of a formation. It was very confusing. They still haven't discovered it? The old Taoist did not carefully think about the situation inside. He first asked Wang Sheng, "It's very dark down there. It will take at least a few months for them to touch it clearly." Wang Sheng was not looking down on the feudal vassals. Even if they joined forces, Wang Sheng was not afraid. Just poking that long pole to the bottom of the lake is not an easy task. They don't have night vision, so they can only rely on touch. The old Taoist knew that Wang Sheng's individual combat terminal could illuminate underwater, so he was very clear about the advantage Wang Sheng had. Being able to see clearly and not being able to see clearly were two completely different things. Moreover, there were other difficulties. Just as Wang Sheng had said, it was not easy to poke the 400-meter-long wooden poles into the bottom. Overcoming the buoyancy of the wood would require a complicated operation. It was said that large iron blocks and long ropes were being transported in from the outside. When the time came, the ropes connected to the iron blocks would be the main force. However, this could only be carried out after a large number of legendary experts had been promoted, right? If you're not sure which one is the one you want, I advise you not to act rashly. The old Taoist was, after all, the old Taoist. After pondering for a long time, he frowned and gave Wang Sheng an answer that was not really an answer. Since the person you are looking for may be someone from 500 years ago and is still alive, then the experts from the major families who besieged her in the past are most likely to have survived using the same method. Wang Sheng nodded. The old Taoist's worries were reasonable. Wang Sheng also had the same concerns, so he did not make a move. Are you really not afraid that she is the public enemy of the world? The old Taoist asked Wang Sheng with interest. His expression was unusually subtle. Chapter 1354. I'm afraid. Wang Sheng answered without hesitation. Then why are you still looking for her with such great fanfare? The old Taoist asked, puzzled. Being afraid is not a reason to stop me from looking for her. Wang Sheng looked up at the old Taoist Ling Su, then said slowly, in fact, I'm afraid every time I go on a mission. It's because I'm afraid that I plan carefully and try my best to complete every mission. Phew! Wang Sheng clearly heard the old Taoist Ling Su let out a long sigh, as if he had suddenly let go of the burden in his heart. It's good that you're afraid. It's good that you're afraid. The old Taoist Ling Su laughed. It was a very relaxed laugh. If you're afraid and in awe, you won't act recklessly. It's good that you're afraid. I'm just afraid that you won't be afraid of anything and become a hothead. Wang Sheng smiled and pointed at the old Taoist. He grabbed the wine bottle and clinked it with the old Taoist, then took a big gulp. The two of them were drinking casually. As long as they were happy, there was no need to drink it all in one go. After drinking, Wang Sheng asked the old Taoist bluntly, Old Taoist, if it's really that person, who do you think it is? He needed the old Taoist's wisdom and insight to help him analyze it. Out of the 25 points, only one could be the girl in his dreams. The others could be the experts who trapped the girl in his dreams back then. Therefore, Wang Sheng could not make any mistakes. If he did, it would bring disaster to the girl in his dreams. The old Taoist pondered with his eyes closed. He would take a sip of wine from time to time. Wang Sheng was not in a hurry to rush him. He waited quietly. The old Taoist pondered for a long time before asking, Tell me, for the past few hundred years, is the power of suppression stronger or the power of resistance stronger? It should be the suppression force. Wang Sheng thought for a moment before replying. After all, it's the suppressive power that takes the initiative. Moreover, she was able to suppress it back then, but she hasn't replenished it for so many years, so she must be getting weaker. Back then, those experts had gathered together to suppress the girl in the dream, so they must have had the upper hand. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to set up a formation like the Grounds of Thousand Despair. However, for some unknown reason, they sealed off the Grounds of Despair and did not kill the girl in her dreams. There must be a reason behind this. Either it couldn't be killed, and could only be sealed using some kind of laborious method, which was very likely. Either he could kill her, but he wanted to keep the girl in his dreams and obtain something from her. This was also possible, but it was only the second most likely, because if they wanted something, they would definitely torture them, not simply imprison them, and they wouldn't imprison them for hundreds of years. I'm not sure how weak she has become after so many years. The old Taoist still pondered for a while before replying. After all, there are 24 of them suppressing one. I dare not say that she is the weakest, and I dare not say that she is the strongest. I'm afraid you still have to get a closer look. Wang Xing nodded. Although the old Taoist's words still did not give a final judgment, at least it had given him a way to look for it. If he went down to the bottom of the lake, Wang Xing would no longer be like a headless fly, and he would be able to focus on his search. The concert in the capital was still very popular, and all parties were waiting for the second, third, and fourth performances. After receiving the exact news, Wang Xing said goodbye to the old Taoist, left the underground palace, and entered the core of the Grounds of Thousand Despair once again. Most of the experts were in the capital, and the rest were waiting for the equipment to be sent in. There weren't many people here, so Wang Xing easily found an opening and entered the central area. It would take a day and a night to reach the center of the lake from the edge of the glacier basin. This was already a rare high-speed journey, and it was also the result of the hard rowing of the legendary experts. However, it only took a few hours for Wang Xing to reach the center of the lake. Although the Pavilion of Delicacy had replicated a batch of things made by Wang Xing, they were not Wang Xing. Even if they had the parts, they would not be able to assemble them. Moreover, they would not have thought that the propellers and whatnot would be used in this place. Then, Wang Xing dived into the water again and explored all 25 spots according to the coordinates he had set the last time. This time, he did not study the special aura, but only the strength of the aura and the degree of closeness to himself. The feeling underwater was completely different from the feeling outside. What was more annoying was that even the little person with combat awareness had lost its effect here, and could not sense the situation in the ice at all. Wang Xing had a map that recorded the positions of the 25 points in detail. This time, Wang Xing recorded the differences in the strength of the aura. Obviously, it was not suitable to analyze underwater, so Wang Xing slowly returned to the surface. With no one to disturb him, Wang Xing could analyze as much as he wanted. There were indeed differences in the strength of the aura of the 25 points. Some were strong, some were weak, but the difference was not very big. The difference between the strongest and the weakest was at most a quarter. It could be distinguished, but it was still impossible to determine. From the degree of closeness of the aura, it was impossible to tell. This was because Wang Xing was embarrassed to find that each of the 25 auras seemed to have a feeling of closeness to him. It was really confusing, and he could not tell which was a friend and which was an enemy. Could it be that these 25 points were not actually enemies? Or perhaps the girl in his dream was imprisoned in a deeper place. Wang Xing was not sure. After pondering for a while, he finally brought the charge combat terminal down to the bottom of the lake again. This time, after finding the first point, Wang Xing directly turned off the light of the combat terminal. In a completely dark environment, Wang Xing shielded his sight, smell, and even stuffed 2 bundles of beast hair into his ears. He shut off his 5 senses and purely used his aura to sense every point. In order to not be disturbed by anything and not be disturbed by the array, Wang Xing even took off the diving suit made from the skin of a 14-stage realm demonic beast. He was naked in the water and was not afraid of the bone-piercing cold as he carefully sensed his surroundings. Wang Xing finally sensed something slightly different as he probed with his aura, as if he was cutting off all means of retreat. This slight fluctuation was very slight. Previously, it was probably due to the influence of the diving suit and the array on Wang Xing's body, so Wang Sheng could not sense it at all. This time, he finally found that trace of clue. Of course, there was a huge price to pay. Wang Sheng had no choice but to stay naked near the ice for several minutes before he could feel the slight difference. Each time, he had to return to the surface of the water to recover for a long time before he could avoid getting frostbite. However, the price he paid was worth it. Wang Sheng spent a total of 5 days to feel the 25 points again. Finally, he completely figured out the connection between the 25 points. Chapter 1355. 24 of the 25 points had a faint connection. This wasn't the connection of a linked formation, but a connection of aura. Wang Sheng didn't know why this was the case, but he could tell that these 24 points were the ones that suppressed the girl in his dreams. The remaining one was naturally the girl in his dreams. At the same time, this point was also the one with the weakest aura. The old Taoist guess was reasonable. After being suppressed for so many years, the aura of the girl in his dreams was probably the weakest one. That trace of connection was simply too weak. If Wang Sheng had not cut off all means of retreat and taken off his diving suit, completely freeing himself from the interference of the aura and formation, Wang Sheng would not have been able to sense it. Now that everyone's attention was focused on the capital, there weren't many experts here, so Wang Sheng had the opportunity to slowly check. Otherwise, if there were more people, Wang Sheng wouldn't have had a chance. However, when he thought about how the various experts would rush over after they advanced, he wondered if they would have the same determination as Wang Sheng. Would they be willing to take off their diving suits and dive into the water to get a feel for the aura? It was estimated that Wang Sheng would still be in control of the secrets here for a long time. At the moment, everyone's attention was still on the Grandmaster's concert and the true legendary realm, so they didn't have the time to pay attention to the core of the land of 1,000 extremes. Everyone had an agreement that no one would enter the lake of the land of 1,000 extremes on a large scale during this period of time. On this point, everyone had implemented it very well. It could be said that apart from a few people in the outer circle, there was no one else in the lake of the entire glacier basin. There was only Wang Sheng. How could Wang Sheng miss such a great opportunity? Since he had already determined the location of the girl in his dreams, if he didn't take advantage of this great opportunity to find her, then when the area covered by the solid ice was too large. For all parties, it wasn't easy to figure out the situation below, even with the ancestral records. Just relying on experts to figure out the location at the bottom of the lake at a depth of 400 meters was enough to give all parties a headache. Wang Sheng had already passed this stage, but the difficulties he faced were not any less. Hard ice that did not melt was at least dozens of degrees below zero, and it must have been supported by an array. It was simply impossible for it to melt naturally. The entire glacier basin in the middle of the tropical jungle had not melted for 500 years, and it was only because of the aura of the girl in the dream that the formation inside was broken that it became a large lake. In the past few days, Wang Sheng had single-handedly tried to melt the core of the ice. It was completely unimaginable. In fact, if any of the 8 great clans wanted to complete this mission, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. What did they rely on to melt the ice at the bottom of a lake that was 400 meters deep? By relying on everyone's cultivation or formation? Of course, there was a heating array, but could it really be done at the bottom of a lake that was 400 meters deep? Maybe, maybe not. However, Wang Sheng had to do it. Otherwise, once the major families came to their senses, Wang Sheng would not have the opportunity to dig out the secrets without being disturbed. If Wang Sheng discovered something, all the families would definitely swarm to snatch it. It was no surprise. Before entering the glacier lake again, Wang Sheng had already made some things in advance. The requirements for these things were not high, and there was no need for a great grandmaster to make them. As long as the experts in the underground palace of the Laojun Temple cooperated with Wang Sheng, it would be enough. The underground palace was not only suitable for refining elixir pills and medicine, but the abundant underground lava was definitely a good place to make all kinds of metal tools. Of course, there were also great grandmasters in the Laojun Temple. Although there was no need for great grandmasters to make the things that Elder Wang wanted to make, the busy great grandmasters in the underground palace still stopped what they were doing and brought their disciples to help Wang Sheng for a long time. The things were not complicated, just a row of metal sleeves of the same diameter. The metal sleeves could be connected and added up to a length of hundreds of feet. Wang Sheng didn't know how deep the ice was, so he made it for such a long time, just in case, so that Wang Sheng would have enough space inside. The diameter of each metal sleeve was the same. It was long enough to put Wang Sheng's inner bladder inside. Moreover, it was double-layered. The outside of the metal sleeves was engraved with a strong heating array. It was the same kind of warm array used in protective clothing, just that it was bigger. Moreover, the connected sleeves could also connect the array to heat up together. Of course, just relying on the array was definitely not enough. No matter how powerful Wang Sheng was, his spiritual qi had already liquefied, but he was still at the peak of the 9th degree realm and had not really broken through to this realm. The array still needed Wang Sheng's spiritual qi. Compared to a person's spiritual qi that could freeze the entire glacier basin, Wang Sheng's spiritual qi was definitely not enough. Therefore, Wang Sheng needed external help. Originally, the old Taoist was a good helper, but unfortunately, Wang Sheng had a premonition that the old Taoist could not appear here, otherwise something unexpected would definitely happen. Without a choice, Wang Sheng could only use some other means. Fortunately, Wang Sheng only wanted to melt a little bit of the thick ice so that he could sink under the ice to see what was at the bottom. He didn't want to melt the entire ice layer, so the difficulty was definitely reduced by tens of thousands of times. If it was only for the metal sleeves, Wang Sheng had many ways. The simplest one was to add quicklime and water. The hollow part of the double metal sleeves could be filled with water and quicklime. This thing was absolutely hot, and melting the metal sleeves in a short period of time was not a big problem. Moreover, after the quicklime and water reaction was completed, it could be discharged at any time and replaced with new quicklime and water, continuing to heat up. The two sides of the sleeves must be sealed to block the surrounding lake water from entering. Otherwise, such a small amount of heat would not be enough to raise the temperature of such a large lake by a few tenths of a degree. Naturally, Wang Sheng also had to prepare an escape route. As a sniper, it was impossible for Wang Sheng not to prepare his own escape route. That would make him look too unprofessional. When necessary, Wang Sheng could abandon these things at any time and forcibly break through the ice to escape. His life would not be in danger. After a simple test, the quicklime and water, coupled with a strong heating array, could indeed melt the ice in an instant. Although it would continue to freeze, as long as the array was maintained, the inside of the sleeves would always be in a state of ice water, and it would not freeze. Wang Sheng quickly chose a good position, and then he went inside the sleeves. After activating the array, the inner sleeves, which were more than 6 meters long, quickly heated up and began to slowly penetrate into the ice below. Behind it, sleeves would be released every once in a while and connected together to form a cylinder. Chapter 1356. This cylinder was the escape passage left by Wang Sheng. As long as Wang Sheng continued to input a small amount of spiritual energy into it, he could maintain the passage to the point where it wouldn't be frozen again, and he could escape at any time. As for the inner bladder, it was Wang Sheng's ice-breaking weapon. Below was a cone-shaped drill. Not only was it designed to melt ice, but it was also hard enough to drill down at high speed. Wang Sheng controlled the inner bladder. On one hand, it could protect himself, and, on the other hand, it was easy to operate. The ice-breaking speed was neither fast nor slow. It could descend about 1 meter per minute. Feeling the coldness outside, Wang Sheng carefully controlled the ice-breaking inner bladder to descend. The deeper it went, the lower the temperature became. Wang Sheng could clearly feel this change. If it weren't for Wang Sheng's diving suit, ordinary people would have been frozen by this temperature. Even Wang Sheng didn't dare to be careless. He kept activating the formation to keep himself warm, not letting his guard down at all. The person who set up this formation probably never thought that Wang Sheng would enter the interior in such a way. The strange thing was that the super cold of this place only became like this after the entire glacier basin melted. Previously, when the families directly dug down from the ice surface, they didn't feel this way. Of course, that was also because the families dug in the wrong place. Who asked them to accurately record the location of the key points in the records passed down by their ancestors? Not to mention the accuracy of the map. Even some reference objects, such as how many steps to the east of a certain tree, had to be found first. Finding the location of a tree in a layer of ice hundreds of meters deep was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Probably when the families dug, they were also confused. The ancestral records were too unreliable, so they had to find the location of a reference object first. Originally, the Sher clan and the Gon clan had wanted to work with Wang Sheng again, getting Wang Sheng to use snow rats and the like to help them find the location this time. However, before they could even say anything, after Wang Sheng messed around with the Xia clan, he went missing. Then, some of the smaller clans were unwilling to give up and unsealed a bunch of super demonic beasts, causing the entire glacier basin to melt. In the end, they no longer had the chance. At that time, the family still wanted to find a reference object, but it was even more difficult this time. 400 meters deep lake bottom, there was no light at all. It wasn't as solid as when it was frozen. At least they could use a torch to light up the place. Now, they could only rely on touch. Only God knew how long it would take for a few people to find it within a radius of dozens of miles with their hands and auras. This was also the reason why the various families wanted to let their top exponents advance at this critical juncture. Under the water, even 9th stage realm peak top exponents could only last for 30 minutes at most, and definitely not any longer. 400 meters deep water pressure, every time they went up and down, they needed to let their own top exponents rest for several days. If they didn't advance, just relying on those top exponents to take turns to explore, how long would that take? Moreover, this was under the situation where the various families didn't interfere with each other temporarily. If they really wanted to understand the situation clearly, they would need to cast a wide net. By then, when the various families mixed together in the dark underwater environment, how could they expect them to know their place? They might as well hope that the various large families would join hands and worship the Son of Heaven as their big brother. Then the world would be at peace. Wang Sheng wasn't worried that his escape route would be blocked by others. Even for that tunnel, Wang Sheng had left a camouflage. When Wang Sheng dived to a certain depth, the tunnel would similarly sink, leaving a height of less than half a meter above him. That portion of water would be frozen under the effect of the array, and no one from the outside would be able to tell that there was a tunnel below, not to mention finding it. As he dived, Wang Sheng calculated the time, and also calculated the depth of the ice layer. This was very simple. Every time a section melted, Wang Sheng needed to release a section of the cylinder to connect with the cylinder above. He just needed to calculate a few cylinders, and he would be able to calculate the depth. What was worth rejoicing was that the unmelted ice layer in this core region wasn't very thick. Wang Sheng originally intended to explore several tens of feet, but in the end, after several tens of feet, the inner bladder drill gave Wang Sheng a feeling of emptiness. Following that, Wang Sheng fell along with the inner bladder. Fortunately, Wang Sheng had already prepared everything. As soon as he felt that something was wrong, a few cylinders quickly appeared and quickly connected with the place where Wang Sheng fell. This was the escape route, and it must not be cut off. The distance from the air to the ground was not high, about 3 feet, a height of 10 meters. If Wang Sheng had just come to this world, he would definitely fall and be injured. But now, this height had almost no effect on Wang Sheng. What fell with Wang Sheng, in addition to the inner bladder, was a lot of ice water, all stored in that tunnel. Fortunately, Wang Sheng had been wearing a diving suit in the inner bladder, so he didn't care. The top of the pipeline had frozen solid, leaving only water left behind by the melted ice in the tunnel. In a few moments, all the water flowed down, leaving only an empty tunnel. This was also good. Without water in the tunnel, it would not be frozen again, and it would be much easier for Wang Sheng to leave. The temperature here was obviously not enough to freeze the air into liquid. It was pitch black all around. Even though Wang Sheng opened the inner bladder from the inside, he still couldn't see any light. The 6-word formula, which was mainly based on the Xing formula, had already been silently released, and he quickly received feedback. This was an underground area with a radius of several tens of feet. It was empty, like a hall but not like one. The temperature was very low. Wang Sheng looked at his military watch and turned on the nightlight function. The temperature was -50 degrees Celsius. The water that had just flowed down had instantly turned into ice shards. He turned on the flashlight, and a beam of light shone out. Soon, Wang Sheng saw the surroundings. There was ice all around, and everything was covered with a thick layer of ice. But for some reason, there was no water in this empty space, and there was still air. But everything was covered in frost, and he couldn't see what was underneath. This was an underground cave. In the middle of the cave, there was an ice pillar at least 4 to 5 feet in diameter, connecting the ground and the ice above. Other than that, there was nothing else. The ground was covered in ice, and it was very flat. Walking around the edge of the cave, Wang Sheng didn't find anything suspicious, but he could clearly feel the strong waves of the array. Of course, all the waves of the array were concentrated on the ice pillar in the middle. After checking that there was no danger in the surroundings, Wang Sheng carefully reached out to touch the ice pillar. The moment he touched the ice pillar, a smile appeared on Wang Sheng's face. He felt a familiar aura coming from the ice pillar. The girl in his dream was here. Chapter 1357. Kill me. When he first came to this world, those words once again appeared in Wang Sheng's ears. The familiar, beautiful eyes of the girl in his dream appeared in front of him, but the girl's tone was full of pain. Why? Wang Sheng's figure suddenly took a step back, his hand leaving the icicle, immediately cutting off that familiar feeling. Wang Sheng himself did not realize that his question was filled with a kind of panic and fear, as well as a touch of deep sorrow. No one answered. Even when the 3 words appeared in his ears, it was because Wang Sheng's hand touched the icicle, and the sound and image appeared directly in his mind, not really heard with his ears or seen with his eyes. With trembling hands, Wang Sheng once again placed his hand on the icicle. The familiar feeling was still there, but there was no sound or image. Why? Answer me. Wang Sheng's emotions seemed to suddenly collapse, and he shouted madly at the icicle. Other than the time when he first came to this world, this was the second time that Wang Sheng heard the girl in his dream asking him to kill her. Moreover, this was in the icicle right in front of him, so there could not be any other mistakes. The reason why Wang Sheng broke down was that he was a warrior, and he knew that the girl in his dream was also a warrior. This was because the girl in his dream was originally trained by Wang Sheng in his dream. As a warrior, the education that Wang Sheng received was the same as what he had instilled in the girl in his dream, which was to never give up no matter what the situation was. However, this was only a theoretical possibility. Many a time, even a warrior would not be able to control his own body. For example, in a situation where he was seriously injured, or in a situation where he was outnumbered, or the 3 life-saving injections in the equipment warehouse used for. The first one was to buy some time for Wang Sheng to fight, so that Wang Sheng could escape. The second one was to let Wang Sheng persevere in the most urgent situation until reinforcements arrived. The third group wanted Wang Sheng to avenge them. They wanted to take their enemies down with them and fight them to the death. When the third injection was used, Wang Sheng basically did not plan to go back alive. This was Wang Sheng himself. On the battlefield, Wang Sheng had also heard his closest comrade say the same 3 words to him, "Kill me." In fact, not only had Wang Sheng heard it, but he had also done it himself. Seeing his comrade lying in Wang Sheng's arms, covered in blood, using all the strength he had left to say those 3 words to Wang Sheng. No matter how hard Wang Sheng's heart was, he could not help but shed tears. However, as he shed tears, Wang Sheng still aimed the muzzle of his Glock at his comrade's heart and pulled the trigger while clenching his teeth in tears. Wang Sheng had experienced such a situation 3 times. All of them were comrades who were seriously injured and could not be saved. However, they were in so much pain that they did not have the strength to commit suicide, so they begged Wang Sheng to help them. As long as one had been on a few tragic battlefields, there was almost a 90% chance that they would encounter such a situation. At that time, the shot to replenish his comrade was not to harm him, but to let him die more comfortably. At the very least, the 3 comrades that Wang Sheng had personally sent to their deaths were all smiling when they left. Their last glance at Wang Sheng was all filled with gratitude and relief. How cruel was it to personally send one's close comrade to his death? However, if they were not sent to their deaths, they would experience hellish pain. After the 3 injections, the last bit of vitality of a person would be unusually strong, and they would not die for a while. All the organs in the body had already deteriorated, and even the best hospital would not be able to save them. However, not only would the pain not reduce, it would also increase by 1,000,000 times. They would not be able to live, nor would they be able to die, living a life worse than death. When they saw their comrades appear, they would beg their closest comrade to kill them and give them a quick death. Wang Sheng had experienced such a situation 3 times, but after returning, Wang Sheng still received psychological counseling several times. Even though Wang Sheng would not bat an eyelid when killing enemies, such a situation, Wang Sheng still could not accept it calmly. When he came to this world and heard that voice, Wang Sheng still had a trace of luck. Perhaps it was only for other reasons that the girl in his dream wanted him to kill her. However, now that he had arrived at this place and heard these 3 words again, the trace of luck in Wang Sheng's heart had disappeared. The girl in his dream was a strong warrior. For a warrior to make such a request, how much despair and pain must she have been under? Based on Wang Sheng's understanding of history, the girl in his dream should have been frozen here for nearly 500 years. Among them, the girl in his dream actually still had consciousness and could even send him some vague messages. One could imagine how much pain she had suffered during this period of time when she was awake. Perhaps being in the 18th level of hell was not enough to describe how the girl in his dream felt. Then, it was very easy to understand the girl in his dream making such a request to Wang Sheng. Originally, Wang Sheng wanted to rescue the girl in his dream and ask her in detail. But now, Wang Sheng did not need to ask at all to know the reason. Truth be told, Wang Sheng had been trying to hypnotize himself along the way, telling himself that he had to figure out the reason. As for the real reason, Wang Sheng knew it all too well. He just didn't want to think in that direction. He had already personally sent 3 of his close comrades on their way, and Wang Sheng really did not want to send the girl in his dream off again. But the ruthless truth had once again forced Wang Sheng to this point. When he arrived in front of the ice pillar where the girl in his dream was, even if he did not want to do it, Wang Sheng had to do it. Otherwise, the girl in his dream would have suffered even more pain. This was a reason why Wang Sheng had collapsed and felt sad just now. No one could understand the girl in hell better than Wang Sheng. She was sending out a signal amidst the endless pain, waiting for him to come and free her from this sea of suffering. The pain and sorrow lasted for less than 5 minutes for Wang Sheng. Then, Wang Sheng returned to the original strong warrior. His comrade had suffered for hundreds of years, and it was in a situation where she was awake. She had already sprouted the will to die. Wang Sheng firmly believed that the girl in his dream was a true warrior. She would never give in until she was in despair. She was the world's #1 expert 500 years ago. She definitely had her own dignity and pride. Would her judgment be wrong? Didn't he come to this world to end the pain of his comrade? Then what was he hesitating for? Thinking of this, Wang Sheng let out a long sigh, and his face became much more determined. Standing in front of the ice pillar, after pondering for a while, he fiercely punched the ice pillar. Chapter 1358. Wang Sheng's current cultivation was at the peak of the 9th degree realm, and his spiritual energy had already liquefied. He was only 1 step away from entering the 10th degree realm, which was also the legendary realm. The ice pillar with a diameter of 40 to 50 feet wasn't small, and it contained a powerful array. But to Wang Sheng, it shouldn't be a problem. In this punch, besides Wang Sheng's entire body strength, there was also a terrifying amount of spiritual energy and the 7 words formula that Wang Sheng had used at the right time as the main formula, which was most suitable for breaking arrays. With such an attack, no matter how strong the ice pillar was, it wouldn't be able to withstand it. Wang Sheng's ideal situation was to shatter the entire icicle with a single punch while he was frozen. The icicle and the girl in his dream, who was frozen together, would be smashed into pieces. The temperature was at least 50 degrees below zero, and the ice pillar would definitely be at the same low temperature. At such a low temperature, even metal would be brittle, and it wasn't unimaginable for a punch to shatter it into pieces. However, the scene in Wang Sheng's imagination didn't happen. The punch landed squarely on the ice pillar. In the next instant, Wang Sheng's body shot out like a cannonball, flying out with a bang. Boom! The flying Wang Sheng smashed heavily on the ice wall several tens of feet away. The entire space seemed to shake for a moment, and then Wang Sheng's body slowly slid down the ice wall all the way to the ground. Because the ground was also smooth ice, he slid for another 10 meters before he slowly came to a stop. Wang Sheng had already fainted and lost consciousness. The recoil was too strong, to the extent that Wang Sheng couldn't withstand it, and he fainted cleanly without any hesitation. It wasn't until 2 minutes later that the piercing cold once again awakened Wang Sheng's consciousness. Slowly sitting up, Wang Sheng reached out his hand to wipe the blood seeping out of the corner of his mouth and laughed bitterly in his heart. Just the rebound force of the array on the ice pillar had shaken him to such an extent that he had suffered internal injuries. This sealing array really lived up to its name. However, upon further thought, it made sense. The aura of the girl in the dream on the sword was so earth-shattering that even she could not break through the seal of this ice pillar. This was definitely not something that Wang Sheng, with his cultivation, could withstand. Wang Sheng had been careless. At the same time, he was eager to end the pain of the girl in his dreams. That was why he had acted rashly. But it couldn't be said that he didn't consider it at all. At least, Wang Sheng's Buddhist incantation of 9 words was very accurate. In theory, the formation on the icicle should have no impact on Wang Sheng. Why was that? Wang Sheng held a pill in his mouth and slowly recovered. He was puzzled. After pondering for a while, Wang Sheng quickly understood. Although the array had no effect on Wang Sheng, the array had a very tight impact on the icicle. Everything on the icicle was bound within the array. In theory, Wang Sheng would not be affected by the array, but the ice on the icicle was solid. Wang Sheng's punch could not melt all the ice, let alone shatter all the ice. Then, the result of his punch, was it not the practical application of Newton's third law? The amount of strength he used to hit the icicle would reflect back to him the same amount of strength. The icicle could not be compressed and shattered, so all the strength was reflected back to Wang Sheng's body. Using all his strength to punch Wang Sheng, it was not incomprehensible for him to be injured and vomit blood. After a while, Wang Sheng stood up and walked in front of the icicle. This time, Wang Sheng did not plan to use his fist. Instead, he took out the sledgehammer that the old Taoist had made for him when he was practicing carving. He used the heaviest one, which weighed thousands of kilograms, and swung it at the icicle. Bang! Amidst the loud collision, the sledgehammer in Wang Sheng's hand flew out and once again rebounded far away. It hit the ice wall in the distance and was directly embedded in it. Wang Sheng's hands were numb, and they trembled uncontrollably. It was the same thing. All the strength he exerted was reflected back to his hands. If it were not for Wang Sheng's quick reflexes and release his hand, the one that flew out would not only be the sledgehammer, but also himself and the sledgehammer. In the past, the array that Wang Sheng encountered was either a seal or an attack. Most of the time, Wang Sheng did not break the array. Instead, he integrated himself into the array so that the array would not affect him. For example, the Dao sect's inheritance and the protective array in the passage of the underground palace were all the same. It was naturally easy to pass through without breaking the array. For the Dao Sect's inheritance, Wang Sheng only needed to reach in and touch the inheritance ball. Other than the translucent array barrier, there was nothing blocking him. Wang Sheng could easily reach in. However, the icicle was different. If Wang Sheng wanted to destroy the ice inside, according to his experience in the underground palace, he only needed to go through the array on the surface of the icicle and destroy the ice inside. In fact, Wang Sheng did the same, but the outcome was completely different. What was going on? After studying it for a while, Wang Sheng finally understood. The array in the underground palace passage was only set up on the surface of the passage and did not penetrate deep into the rocks. That was why Wang Sheng could destroy it unscrupulously. However, the array in the icicle was a completely different matter. Not only was there a strong array on the surface of the icicle, but in fact, there was an array in every area of the entire 40 to 50 feet diameter icicle. In other words, the entire icicle was actually a large container filled with three-dimensional array. Wang Sheng wanted to break through the array on the surface to destroy the ice inside, but he could not do it at all. Unless the array inside and outside of the icicle was completely destroyed, the icicle would be as stable as a rock. Wang Sheng could not do anything to it. No matter how powerful Wang Sheng's aura was and how powerful the 9 secret words were, he could only sense the array inside the icicle at most 10 feet deep. Any further in, Wang Sheng could not sense anything. However, at this critical moment, the little person with combat awareness seemed to have completely lost its role. It could not help Wang Sheng at all, so Wang Sheng could only sigh helplessly. It was not easy for him to make up his mind to give his comrade a quick death and end her pain. But now, he could not even remove a piece of ice from the icicle. What kind of situation was this? All of a sudden, Wang Sheng began to hate himself. If he knew this, Wang Sheng would have leaked everything here earlier and let the masters of the various families find a way to destroy this array together, and then end the pain of the girl in the dream. Why did they have to make such a detailed arrangement? And then he came in, but could not do anything. Right now, Wang Sheng was wondering if he should let those people in and have them help him do it. However, reason still reminded Wang Sheng not to do stupid things. If the masters of the various families came in, the first thing they would do would not be to kill the girl in the dream. Their ancestors had arranged the array for hundreds of years and tortured the girl in the dream for hundreds of years. Under the situation where the girl in the dream wanted to die, maybe they would get what they wanted. Chapter 1359. Could Wang Sheng let everyone's little scheme succeed? Obviously not. If it was some business or territorial benefits, Wang Sheng would not care at all. However, if this benefit was based on torturing the girl in his dream, Wang Sheng would never tolerate it. Now Wang Sheng had no illusions and threw away all unrealistic fantasies. Looking at the huge icicle imprisoning the girl in his dream, Wang Sheng only wanted to destroy it now. Since smashing it with force would not work, Wang Sheng immediately changed his method. The icicle was extremely hard because of the array, but from Wang Sheng's experience in this space, even the hard ice frozen by the array could be melted in a small area. If it could not be broken, couldn't it be melted? As long as the icicle was melted, then the array inside would lose its basis of existence, and perhaps it would be easily solved. Although this sounded a bit too simple, Wang Sheng still did not mind giving it a try. Since he was already here, if he did not try it, Wang Sheng would definitely not be willing. The most direct way to melt the hard ice was to roast it with fire. Among the large number of storage rings that Wang Sheng carried with him, there were 1 or 2 that were full of firewood. If it was feasible to roast it with fire, Wang Sheng still had the parts of a large wooden ship, which was enough to burn. Easily on the corner of the icicle, Wang Sheng lit a bonfire. He directly leaned the firewood against the icicle and poured oil to ignite it. Soon the flame rose up. Wang Sheng stared at the icicle next to the flame. After a while, Wang Sheng finally sighed and took the initiative to extinguish the flame. The array on the icicle seemed to be able to shield the heat. The flame was so big, more than 3 feet high, but it only melted the crushed ice outside the icicle. Once it was within the range of the array, it was useless. Wang Sheng could clearly feel that the ice inside the array was not affected at all, let alone melting. Perhaps it did not even raise the temperature by 1 or 2 degrees. Under such circumstances, it would be futile to continue experimenting with fire. It would also consume the limited amount of oxygen in this space, so it could only be extinguished. Wang Sheng was not surprised by this result at all. If such a powerful array could be solved with just a pile of firewood, then it would be child's play. With both of his hands pressed against the icicle, Wang Sheng tried to use the 9 secret words to penetrate the formation, and at the same time, he used his spiritual energy to melt the ice inside. Even if he could only melt a small piece, Wang Sheng still had hope of breaking the array. One small piece at a time. It was just a matter of persistence and time. Alas, even with Wang Sheng's 9th stage realm peak cultivation and his almost completely liquefied spiritual qi, when faced with this ice pillar, he was still helpless. The ice inside seemed to have turned into steel under the effect of the array. No matter how hard or gentle Wang Sheng tried, he couldn't do anything. Wang Sheng was not discouraged. He used more than 10 methods, but still couldn't do anything to this array. At the same time, the array remained unmoved. Even the ice inside showed no signs of melting. After carefully probing with the 9 secret words, Wang Sheng discovered that the array did not only exist on the icicle, but also went deep into the ground. This formation was definitely on a scale that Wang Sheng couldn't even begin to imagine. The first thought that came to Wang Sheng's mind was that the part of the array that went deep into the ground must be the part that absorbed energy. And below it, there was a high possibility that there was a huge active volcano, just like the underground palace in the old Supreme Lord Temple. Lava flowed underground, providing energy to the array. Other than this, Wang Sheng couldn't think of any other powerful energy that could maintain such a huge array. And how could it turn a plain area into a glacier basin? He just didn't know how the various sects created this array, or if it was built according to the situation. In short, to be able to set up such an array, it was definitely a grandmaster among grandmasters of arrays. It was estimated that all the grandmasters of arrays that Wang Sheng had met would bow down in worship when they saw this array. After working hard for an entire day, Wang Sheng felt that the underground space was starting to feel stuffy. There wasn't much oxygen here, and after burning a fire, coupled with Wang Sheng's own breathing, the consumption was almost the same. Luckily, Wang Sheng had brought his own cylinder with compressed air, which was enough for Wang Sheng to stay here for another day or two. Wang Sheng tried his best, but still couldn't find a way to break the array. After thinking about it, there seemed to be only one way left, and that was to cut off the energy source of the array. Without the energy to maintain the operation of the array would collapse by itself. However, the premise of cutting off the energy source was to fully understand the array and be able to find the energy source. Wang Sheng suppressed his anxiety, sat cross-legged on the edge of the icicle, leaned his back against the icicle, and began to cultivate. At this time, he needed to calm down. Wang Sheng had to rely on the cold temperature here and his cultivation to calm himself down. After a weakened day, Wang Sheng's aura began to slowly penetrate into the icicle from all directions. This time, Wang Sheng didn't intend to destroy it. He just wanted to explore and see what kind of situation this array was in. He wanted to see if he could thoroughly understand the array through the resonance of his own aura. If possible, perhaps the resonance of the fluctuations of the array could destroy the array to the greatest extent. When Wang Sheng calmed down and did this, Wang Sheng didn't realize that there was a huge movement on the lake with Wang Sheng's actions at this moment. For no reason, a whirlpool appeared on the calm lake. In the beginning, the vortex was very small, spinning slowly. However, as time went by, the vortex grew larger and larger, spinning faster and faster. Soon, it had become a massive vortex with a diameter of over 100 jong. The whirlpool set off a huge wave of tens of feet high, beginning to spread in all directions from the center of the lake. Fortunately, there was no one else in the center of the lake at this time except for Wang Sheng, so no one saw this terrible scene. However, The huge waves spread in all directions. Even if it was weakened by hundreds of miles, it would still cause a big movement when it reached the edge of the glacier basin. Wang Sheng's consciousness, after penetrating 2 feet into the icicle, couldn't go any further, reaching the limit. It was the same for going down. After 2 feet, it couldn't go any further. After a long time, Wang Sheng's aura slowly returned to his body, and Wang Sheng also opened his eyes. He was sure that the underground was the source of the energy. At the deepest place, where Wang Sheng reached the limit, Wang Sheng felt a fiery power, which should be the energy of lava. However, that depth was not the lava layer. It was just that Wang Sheng felt the energy of lava at that depth. What Wang Sheng needed to do now was to find a way to cut off the energy of the lava so that the array would slowly stop after losing the energy supply. It was obviously difficult to rely on Wang Sheng alone. Perhaps it was time to cooperate with the big families again. Chapter 1360. The relationship between Wang Sheng and the various large clans was one of mutual exploitation and mutual vigilance. Even though Wang Sheng and Song Yan were as close as husband and wife to the Song clan, the internet didn't dare to let down their guard. It was true that Song Yan was Wang Sheng's woman, but she was also the head of the Song clan, the Song clan's Duke of Song. After Song Yan secretly took control of the Song clan, her desire for power grew stronger by the day. On Earth, she would be an incomparably valiant and strong woman. In the history of Earth, Song Yan might even have the chance to stand shoulder to shoulder with Wu Zetian. Wang Sheng and Song Yan's personal friendship was nothing compared to the interests of the Song clan in the Kingdom of Song. Therefore, even with Song Yan, Wang Sheng could only cooperate with her to a limited extent. He didn't dare to cooperate with her like Mayer and Rosa. However, she was Wang Sheng's woman, and the two of them were closer than others. Song Yan wasn't like the other clans. The other clans not only wanted to make use of Wang Sheng, but they also wanted to take Wang Sheng's life. Song Yan wouldn't do that. She would only use Wang Sheng and leave Wang Sheng alive to be with her. The goal of unraveling the core secret of the Grounds of Despair was the same as the various large clans. Therefore, Wang Sheng felt that they could cooperate for the time being. After all, no matter how powerful Wang Sheng was, he was only one person. Wang Sheng needed the large clan's resources to break the formation. As for how they would cooperate, Wang Sheng had to plan further. But now, the glacial lake's changes were starting to spread to the edge of the lake. The various clans were at the edge of the glacial lake, which was also the edge of the glacial basin. They all had people watching the situation. Most of the experts had gone to the capital to advance, and only a few were still watching the situation. After traveling for a few hundred miles, the huge wave slammed heavily against the edge of the glacial basin. Although it was no longer as tall as before, it was still more than 10 meters tall. It was enough for anyone with eyes and a brain to realize that a huge change had occurred in the lake. When Wang Sheng climbed out of the pipe he had left behind, the supervisors of the various camps had already known that something big had happened at Glacier Lake. They all rushed over as fast as they could. The waves came one after another and lasted for a full 2 hours before they finally calmed down. By the time the camp supervisors arrived at the shore closest to them, the waves had already stopped. However, the surface of the lake was no longer as calm as it was before. One after another, small waves of 1 to 2 meters hit the lakeside, splashing high into the air. No one knew what had happened, and no one dared to enter. It was conceivable that something must have happened inside. It was very likely that someone had found something. Everyone had this guess, but no one dared to confirm which family it was. The 8 great clans and those small clans and sects had never been united. Although everyone had an agreement, who knew if the other party had secretly sent people in? Even if they had, they wouldn't say anything. Just when the experts in the capital were waiting to advance and making all kinds of preparations, something like this suddenly happened here. This made people very suspicious. It was clearly a conspiracy to transfer most of the experts here to the capital. However, advancing to the legendary realm in the capital was not fake. Who didn't want to break through the restrictions of common sense and step into a cultivation realm that no one had ever reached before. It was a little ridiculous to say that it was a conspiracy to advance all the experts. Under such contradictory feelings, the various camp supervisors did not dare to delay and quickly sent out the news. The situation was too strange, but there were not many suitable experts in the camp, so they could only ask for help. In less than 2 days, a group of newly advanced legendary realm experts in the capital rushed back to the land of Thousand Despair without bothering to consolidate their cultivation. The land of Thousand Despair looked calm, and there was no big movement, but some people had been watching several directions. The underground palace of the Tao sect was the focus. The other two were the worry-free city and the capital. These were all related to Wangsheng. Paying attention to these directions was mainly to keep an eye on Wangsheng's tracks. Unfortunately, they did not see Wangsheng in any of those directions. Since the last time Wangsheng left the capital and entered the land of Thousand Despair, no one had found any traces of Wangsheng. With Wangsheng's current cultivation and power in the land of Thousand Despair, it was not difficult for him to find someone a few miles away and avoid the people monitoring him. Over at the Glacier Lake, Wangsheng had already left without anyone noticing. No one knew where he had gone. Everyone was curious about the movement in the Glacier Lake, but after Wangsheng left, the movement in the lake became smaller and smaller, and gradually it returned to its original calm. There were no changes in the aura, which made the experts who stayed behind to monitor feel more at ease. From the previous movement, everyone's guesses were focused on the super demonic beasts in the lake. Although they suspected that the secret at the bottom of the lake had been exposed, the possibility of this was too low. The strongest experts of each sect had returned in failure, so who else could decipher the secret in that kind of environment? The super expert who was most likely to do this, the old ancestor Ling Su of the Laojun Temple, had been staying in the camp of the Laojun Temple. Every day, he would give pointers to the experts of the Tao sect in the camp. This was seen by the people monitoring him from afar and could not be hidden from others. The old ancestor definitely did not have the time and opportunity to secretly cause trouble in the Glacier Lake. The only one that no one dared to make assumptions about was Wangsheng. If there was really a person who could decipher the secret of the land of Thousand Despair without everyone knowing, it would probably be Wangsheng. And Wangsheng was indeed very suspicious, for there was no trace of him during this period of time. Just when the experts from all sides had not returned to their camps and had not had the time to enter the Glacier Lake to see what had happened, Wangsheng's figure swaggered into the worry-free city. Under everyone's surprised gaze, he returned to his residence in the worry-free city. When he returned home, Wangsheng found that Aki was not there. She had left the worry-free city more than a month ago and entered the land of Thousand Despair. Previously, Aki often did this. Not to mention the 2 maids who were in charge of serving her. Everyone in the land of Thousand Despair who knew Aki did not find it strange. Wangsheng did not take it seriously and settled down in the worry-free city. With such a big movement in the Glacier Lake, all parties must have seen it. If Wangsheng's guess was right, the Shi clan and Gan clan, the 2 great feudal vassals who had cooperated with Wangsheng in the past, would definitely come looking for him at the first instance. Sometimes, to cooperate with the major forces, Wangsheng did not need to go looking for them. However, to Wangsheng's surprise, the first to come looking for him was not the Shi clan or the Gan clan, but Song Yin. Chapter 1361. Why are you in Carefree City? Wangsheng was surprised to see Song Yin. Logically speaking, Song Yin should at least be with her subordinates in the capital city, waiting to advance to the legendary realm, right? Why did she suddenly come to Carefree City? The distance between Carefree City and the capital city wasn't a day or two's journey. Even with messenger birds, it would still take a day or two for the various families to react to the news. Even if the Shi clan and the Gan clan had come knocking on his door, it was likely that they had sent someone from Worry-Free City. The fact that Song Yin had come knocking on his door at the first moment meant that she had been in Worry-Free City recently and had not rushed over from somewhere else. Is it strange for me to be in Carefree City? Song Yin seemed to have known that Aki wasn't around and had taken over her place. The people she brought along directly invited the two maidservants back to their rooms and replaced them with Song Yan's personal maidservants and guards. These people were all brought along by Song Yin to serve Wang Sheng in the capital city. They knew the relationship between the two of them very well and even addressed him as son-in-law. They were extremely respectful towards Wang Sheng. Hearing Song Yan's nonchalant reply, Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin with interest. Suddenly, he frowned and complained to Song Yin, "Didn't I tell you to wait a little longer before advancing? How did you advance to the 9th stage so quickly?" "I just advanced in the capital city." Song Yin listened to Wang Sheng's complaints, but her face was beaming with joy. Her tone was also very soft and gentle, completely different from the Song family's little princess who was decisive and murderous. This enemy still knew how to care about her. It was worth rushing over from the capital city right after advancing. "You went to the first round?" Wang Sheng immediately knew when Song Yin had advanced. It was obvious that she had used the large spiritual energy balls from the dozens of legendary realm experts to bring herself to the 9th stage. If that was the case, it wasn't a bad thing. Originally, when Song Yin was in the 6th stage realm, she had first been crippled by Wang Sheng's heaven and earth reversal, and subsequently used the divine pill she found in the underground palace to rebuild her foundation to cultivate again. Her cultivation path was similar to Wang Sheng's, so her foundation was indeed sufficiently solid. Even Song Yan's first foundation had been laid for more than 10 years. She had cultivated since she was young. Although her origin soul star was not high, her foundation was many times deeper than Wang Sheng's. With the help of the divine pill, her cultivation speed was not any slower than Wang Sheng's. The fact that she was able to persist until a month ago to advance meant that she had taken Wang Sheng's advice to heart. In coming to the worry-free city to consolidate my cultivation is not a bad choice. After figuring this out, Wang Sheng nodded. We're at the edge of the land of 1,000 extremities. There's plenty of spiritual energy here, but it's not as strong. Without the old Taoist cultivation base, it's better for us to consolidate our cultivation base outside. When Song Yin heard these words, she was so happy that a smile blossomed on her face like a flower. Every word Wang Sheng said revolved around her body and cultivation base. It was all about his concern. Sitting here and listening to his words made her happier than being greeted by so many people in the Song Kingdom's palace. "What's in there?" Song Yin smiled happily, but the moment she opened her mouth, she asked the core question. "What's in there?" Wang Sheng asked without batting an eyelid. How could an ace sniper's mental fortitude be so strong? How could he be coaxed out of her with just a few words? As he spoke, he even picked up his teacup and took a sip to cover up. "What do you think?" Song Yin rolled her eyes at Wang Sheng. Why was he still acting dumb at this time? Wang Sheng smiled bitterly in his heart when Song Yin looked at him. Song Yan's gaze contained too many emotions. There was anger, joy, and a little indignation. In any case, it was a complex mix of emotions. However, it was the kind that Wang Sheng could not resist. When it came to emotions, Wang Sheng could not resist it. There was originally a huge ritual array, but it has been broken now. Wang Sheng sighed and replied with a bitter smile. "The glacier basin has become a huge lake. I know that." Song Yin could not help but say angrily as she rolled her eyes at Wang Sheng again. Who did not know such an obvious thing? Was there a need for Wang Sheng to say it? On the other hand, the name Glacier Basin seemed rather suitable. "There are 2 smaller ritual arrays in there that no one has broken yet," Wang Sheng said with a bitter smile. "Smaller ritual arrays?" Song Yin revealed a shocked expression this time. Then she asked Wang Sheng, "There are 2 more?" Wang Sheng only nodded without saying anything. Song Yin, on the other hand, began to ponder. The fact that there were 2 more ritual arrays was really out of her expectations. The experts of the Song family had also dived into the glacier basin to investigate. They knew that the impenetrable ice was definitely because of the ritual arrays. However, they did not expect that there would be 2 ritual arrays. "Where is the other one?" Song Yin asked anxiously. However, she did not say where the other ritual array was. It seemed that this was a fact that everyone knew. Those super demonic beasts. Wang Sheng faced Song Yin and said without hiding anything, right now, they can't leave the binding ritual array. However, if there are more experts in the legendary realm, I'm afraid the result will be different. Did you plan to advance to the legendary realm? Song Yin immediately stood up and asked in surprise. With just one answer from Wang Sheng, Song Yin, an incomparably intelligent woman, immediately realized that the breakthrough to the peak of the ninth degree realm was definitely caused by Wang Sheng. Other than Wang Sheng, who else could invite the Grandmaster Band? Mayor. What a joke. Without Wang Sheng, even 10 Mayor wouldn't be enough in front of them. Why did Ancestor Ling Su have to advance at a time when everyone was searching the bottom of the glacier lake? He even released such a big news. Other than Wang Sheng, Song Yin couldn't think of anyone else. Thinking back to what Wang Sheng had just said, Song Yin couldn't wait to beat up this enemy in front of her. So many people advanced, so it was this enemy's plot. It was simply crazy to be schemed against. You're not willing to help you improve the cultivation of the experts? Wang Sheng laughed. This was originally Wang Sheng's open and above-board plot. Once the news was released, whoever could endure it, Wang Sheng would definitely admire him. Not to mention other families. Even the Song family was no exception. Didn't they all rush to cultivate and advance? This was a great opportunity. The Grandmaster Band would go into seclusion for a year after performing these few performances. Which expert in the peak of the ninth degree realm could endure it? Advancing a year later than others? What's in it for me? Song Yin didn't think about why Wang Sheng did this, and directly asked, if the array outside is not broken, the one inside won't be able to open in another 500 years. Wang Sheng pursed his lips and explained to Song Yin, if you're willing to wait, I don't mind. Or did you want to rely on a group of ninth degree realm experts to fight so many super demonic beasts? Chapter 1362. Song Yin was speechless. Between the two arrays, one had to be broken before the other could be broken. In other words, those super demonic beasts had to be killed. Not to mention the fact that Wang Sheng's method of advancement had tempted all the experts. Even if Wang Sheng didn't give it to them, those experts would still think of ways to improve themselves. Otherwise, they would have to face those super demonic beasts at the peak of the ninth degree realm. No matter what, Wang Sheng had basically given them away to save their lives. You actually don't fully believe in the method I told you, right? Wang Sheng looked at Song Yan's expression and knew that he had finally convinced her. Helping others to improve their cultivation wasn't a mistake. Would those people vent their anger on Wang Sheng because of this? Originally, I thought that reaching the peak of the ninth degree realm would be my limit. Song Yin smiled bitterly. Wang Sheng had once given her pointers on the method to advance her soul. Song Yin had also advanced, but she was still limited by common sense, thinking that the peak of the ninth degree realm was the limit. But now, she was convinced, now I believe it all. Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin with a smile and didn't say a word, only drinking his tea. I'm sorry. Under the astonished gazes of the two maids and personal guards, Song Yin actually apologized to Wang Sheng. Her tone was unprecedentedly gentle, unprecedentedly sincere and careful, as if she was afraid of angering Wang Sheng. Ever since she became the de facto ruler of the Song Kingdom, when had Song Yin ever been so submissive? Even if she had made the wrong decision, when she faced the Song family's elder guild, it was just a light apology. Why did she have to suck up to him like this? Of course, they were all women, so the maids and guards understood the attitude their young miss had towards her lover. If it was them, they would probably suck up to him too. Try it. Wang Sheng stood up and asked Song Yin to wait while he went to the kitchen and took out the squid tentacles. He cut a plate of sashimi and brought it to Song Yin. The few of you have a taste with your young Mississippi. What's this? Song Yin asked, her hands moving extremely quickly. Everyone knew that Wang Sheng's culinary skills were unparalleled. Song Yin picked up a piece of sashimi and put it into her mouth. As soon as it entered her mouth, she felt that something was wrong. Her eyes widened and she couldn't say anything. Wang Sheng gestured for the maids and guards to taste it as well. Looking at the young Mrs.'s expression, it must be an extraordinary delicacy. Song Yin and the girls were master and servant in name, but they were as close as sisters. After all, if the miss and the young master got married one day, they would all be part of the dowry. They didn't need to be polite in front of the young master, so they all smiled and put a piece into their mouths. Including Song Yin, the few maids and guards were all in the 9th stage realm. Once the 14th realm king cuttlefish meat entered one's mouth, one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. At this time, the taste had become an extremely secondary thing and was not important at all. Everyone was shocked by the powerful spirit qi contained in this mouthful of meat. Although human cultivators were much weaker than demonic beasts when it came to absorbing spirit qi from food, they could still absorb it. Especially after reaching the 9th stage realm, they could barely be considered to be on the same starting line as ordinary demonic beasts in this aspect. After one mouthful, the girls no longer cared about anything else, and all started to cultivate and refine it on the spot. However, no matter how powerful the demonic beast's meat was, it was only a mouthful's worth. The girls only took 3 weekdays to refine and absorb all of it. Song Yin let out a long breath and opened her eyes. What demonic beast's meat is this? Song Yin asked Wang Sheng this question the moment she opened her beautiful eyes. The maids and guards were the same, looking at Wang Sheng with burning eyes. The meat of a 14th realm demonic beast in the sea. Wang Sheng didn't hide anything from Song Yin. He took it out for her to let her know, so he directly said the answer, the newly defined legendary realm, the epic realm. Now that you think about it, don't you think it's funny? The legendary realm was the 10th stage, and the epic realm was the 11th stage. If it was before, and Wang Sheng said this, the girls would definitely not believe it. But after eating the meat and hearing Wang Sheng's answer, they thought it was really funny. The 11th stage was the epic realm. Then what was the 14th stage? How does it taste? Wang Sheng didn't wait for Song Yin to answer and directly threw a storage ring to her. If you think it's not bad, take it back and eat a little every day. It's good for your body and cultivation. Song Yin immediately grabbed the storage ring that Wang Sheng had given her, as if it were a priceless treasure, and carefully put it away. Then she asked about the details of the super terrifying demonic beast Wang Sheng had. Wang Sheng quickly told her how he and old Taoistling Su went out to sea to look for Bao Qing Yutang's treasure. Other than not showing the video to Song Yin, Wang Sheng didn't even hide the fact that he had obtained the 14th realm spirit. Not only Song Yin, but Song Yin's 4 confidants were also dumbfounded. In the vast sea, there was actually such a magnificent experience. It was simply fascinating. I'm not telling you this to surprise you. Wang Sheng waved his hand in front of Song Yin, calling her back to her senses. Hurry up and make a batch of suitable soul tablets. The spirit of a super demonic beast is not a spirit, right? At least you have a conscience. Song Yin came back to her senses and gave Wang Sheng a charming and heroic smile, then looked at the maidservant on her left. The maidservant understood tacitly and bowed to Wang Sheng, then left respectfully to make the arrangements. This was a great opportunity, a great benefit. Whoever was well prepared would be able to eat the biggest cake. You just said that there are 2 small formations inside, right? Song Yin suddenly thought of the description that Wang Sheng just said and quickly asked. That's right. Wang Sheng nodded. Do you think that a formation with 81 super demonic beasts in a radius of a few hundred miles is a small formation? Song Yin's expression was extremely strange, and the tone she used to ask Wang Sheng was also extremely strange. Wang Sheng smiled as he replied to Song Yin. Compared to the grand formation that covers the entire glacier basin and can change the climate within a radius of several hundred kilometers, that is indeed a small formation. No? Song Yin was suddenly speechless, because she realized that she couldn't refute Wang Sheng's point of view. Everything was afraid of comparison. Compared to the large formation that could change the climate of the entire glacier basin, The formation that restrained the super demonic beast was indeed a small formation that couldn't be any smaller. For that one moment, Song Yin suddenly felt sad for the formation grandmasters in this world. In their limited experience, when had they ever seen a large formation that used heaven and earth as the formation stone? If those array formation great grandmasters were to rush here and see the scale of this array formation, who knew how much they would cry out? You're planning to send so many experts from our families to their deaths. Song Yin suddenly sighed and said. Chapter 1363. How could that be? Wang Sheng denied, completely ignoring Song Yan's angry gaze. You think too highly of me. Would you have given up on entering the glacier lake if I hadn't told you all this? Song Yin was speechless again. She couldn't answer Wang Sheng. Just as Wang Sheng had said, would the 8 feudal vassals have given up on entering the place if Wang Sheng hadn't told her all this? For the past 500 years, the 8 feudal vassals had always wanted to enter the place and unlock its secrets. If it weren't for Wang Sheng, they wouldn't have had the chance to reach the edge of the core area. Even with Song Honda's meticulous planning, they could only explore the outskirts of the place. Now that the glacier basin had turned into a glacier lake, the major families had already sent people to search the lake. Would they agree to stop searching now, lest their experts die? Song Yin wouldn't agree to it, even without looking for someone else. The answer that her ancestors had been searching for was right in front of her. Would Song Yin give up? At the end of the day, Song Yin was an ambitious woman. Her ultimate goal was to lead the Song clan to become as powerful as Empress Wu Zetian. I just stretched out my pinky and pushed you a little when you were at the edge of the cliff and were about to jump down. Wang Sheng didn't hide his intentions. If I hadn't pushed you, you would have jumped 2 days later. But you still had to jump. You should thank me for helping you make up your mind. You told me that you could absorb the soul of a super demonic beast. Do you want more people from the Song family to die? Song Yin asked coldly. Of course not. Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin, who was trying hard to pretend to be angry. He smiled and replied, That's an excuse for you to push the experts you can't control. Of course, it's also the best reason for the other families to kill the super demonic beast before you. Not only would they be able to unlock the secrets of the core of the place of despair, but they would also be able to get the soul of a super demonic beast. With such great benefits, even Song Yin was tempted, not to mention those masters who had just leveled up and thought they were invincible. In the Song clan, Song Yan's words were practically the law. However, it was only practically. There were still a group of seniors and experts with high cultivation bases who acted as if they were subservient to her on the surface, but not at all. These experts were just right to do these things. It could be considered as eradicating some disloyal people. It was impossible for the Song clan to kill all 80 super demonic beasts by themselves. No one was a fool. Who wouldn't put in the effort? Only by breaking this array formation would they be able to unlock the reason behind the other array formation inside. Adding the harvest of the super monstrous beast spirit, they would be able to tempt the experts of the other families. This was clearly the best reason to kill with a borrowed knife. Looking at the smiling Wang Sheng before her, Song Yin couldn't help but feel moved. This was indeed the man she had set her sights on from the very beginning. Just this ability to plot against the entire world without batting an eyelid was enough to make Song Yin fall into a daze. At this moment, Song Yin no longer had the lofty aspirations to look down on the world. All that was left was a female infatuated fool, who, a figure directly threw herself into Wang Sheng's arms. Before Wang Sheng could even react, Song Yin hugged him and forcefully kissed him. Wang Sheng didn't resist. He wrapped his arms around Song Yan's slender waist and cooperated with her kiss. The remaining maid and 2 female guards looked at each other with helpless expressions on their faces. They obediently left the hall and closed the door behind them. Song Yin could be said to be the only independent woman Wang Sheng had seen in this world other than Mei Er. However, there was one bad thing about her. Her pride was too strong. Even when it came to sex, Song Yin had to take the initiative. She wanted to prove that she was better than a man. In the end, Song Yin was like a puddle of paste still lying on Wang Sheng's body. She wouldn't get off even if she died. In her words, this was the female Duke of Song spoiling her gigolo. Wang Sheng only needed to obediently do his job as a gigolo, which had a very promising future. There was no need for her to do anything. However, this time, it wasn't on the bed. Instead, it was Wang Sheng sitting on a chair. Song Yin was riding on top of Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had to reach out to hold Song Yan's slender waist so that she wouldn't collapse. Isn't there still a small formation? How big is that formation? Song Yin buried her head in Wang Sheng's neck for a long time. After enjoying the intense aftertaste, she whispered into Wang Sheng's ear. That small one. Wang Sheng also enjoyed it very much. His large hand slid down Song Yan's silky back. He said in a low voice, "It's only a dozen or so square miles. It can't be any smaller." Song Yin was completely speechless. On one hand, Wang Sheng's demonic hands made her feel like she was floating in the clouds. On the other hand, she really didn't want to complain about Wang Sheng anymore. A dozen or so square miles. Could it be any smaller? How could those grandmasters, who could only set up formations in a small area, endure this? After a while, Song Yin whispered again, "What's in that formation?" "There's the person I want to kill," Wang Sheng replied as he hugged Song Yin. Then, Wang Sheng felt Song Yan's body suddenly stiffen. Song Yin, who was so soft that she didn't even want to move a finger, suddenly sat up straight. When he came to this world, Wang Sheng had told Song Yin that he was here to kill a person, the person who possessed the Phoenix origin soul. This was something that Song Yin remembered very clearly. At that time, Song Yin had laughed at Wang Sheng for overestimating himself. But ever since Wang Sheng blew up Fourth Master Dai's head with a single shot from 5 miles away, Song Yin believed him. After that, every time Wang Sheng did something that others couldn't, Song Yin's confidence grew a little stronger. Is there really such a person? Song Yin suddenly felt a little flustered. An inexplicable fear seemed to have been carved into her bones. "You don't know?" Wang Sheng seemed very surprised. "Didn't the ancient records left by your ancestors say anything about what's inside the 1,000 Despair Grounds? They only said that there's an enormous secret, an enormous benefit, and that it's related to the world's #1 expert from hundreds of years ago." Song Yin shook her head, straightened her body, and looked at Wang Sheng, asking, "You don't believe it, do you?" "I do." Wang Sheng smiled as he patted Song Yan's back. He reached out to drape a coat over Song Yan's shoulders and said, "Of course I believe it. A secret related to the world's #1 expert. Wouldn't that be an enormous benefit to the various great families? If a family could produce a clansman who could rival the world's #1 expert, wouldn't that family be able to do whatever they wanted?" "That's right. I have a question that I've always wanted to ask." Wang Sheng seemed to have thought of something and asked Song Yin, "You also know that Ancestor Ling Su's cultivation is absolutely unparalleled under the heavens. To put it bluntly, he's more or less the world's #1. Why aren't you afraid?" Chapter 1364. Ancestor Ling Su is quiet and doesn't care about worldly affairs. Why will we be afraid? Song Yin didn't think much about it and answered quickly. After answering, Song Yin realized what Wang Sheng meant by asking this question. She couldn't help but cover her mouth and ask in surprise, You can't think that we will attack the Laojun Temple, right? You can't completely rule out this possibility, right?" Wang Sheng said with a sigh. "Absolutely impossible." Song Yin shook her head very firmly. Afraid that Wang Sheng didn't believe her, she added, "Absolutely impossible. Why?" Wang Sheng asked in confusion. "You're a secular elder of the Laojun Temple." Song Yin couldn't help but touch her forehead and sighed. "Don't you know how powerful the Laojun Temple is? Other than the Laojun Temple, which one of the remaining 5 sects of Dao sect isn't a behemoth. The 6 sects of the Dao sect are of the same breadth and branch, and pulling one hair will affect the whole body. Which sect is tired of living and dares to openly provoke the Dao sect? What if the 8 great families unite?" Wang Sheng seemed to want to get to the bottom of this and asked this question, which made Song Yin feel a little strange. Why would the 8 great families unite to deal with the Laojun Temple? Song Yin couldn't help but find it funny and asked Wang Sheng teasingly, "Is it because ancestor Ling Su's cultivation is the best in the world? Isn't this reason enough?" Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin and asked very seriously, "Why would you think so?" Song Yin didn't understand Wang Sheng's thoughts, but just as she asked this question, she suddenly realized that what Wang Sheng really wanted to ask was the most fundamental reason. Then what was the reason for the Lin family back then? Before Song Yin said it herself, Wang Sheng had already asked what he wanted to ask. Wasn't it also because of the number 1 expert of the Lin family that they were besieged? Song Yin suddenly didn't know how to answer Wang Sheng. That was because, according to the reasons that the various clans had used to attack the Lin family back then, there was a possibility that they would join forces to deal with the Laojun Temple and the Dao sect. 500 years ago, and now, did not seem to be much different. There's a world's number 1 expert, the kind that other experts could only look up to, the kind that could decide the life and death of a family head with a raise of a hand. Behind the world's number 1 expert, there was a huge force supporting them, forcing all the big families to unite in order to fight together. Apart from the fact that one of them was called the Lin family, the other was called the Laojun Temple or Taoism, there seemed to be no difference in the situation. According to the logic of 500 years ago, it seemed that the major families had no other choice but to unite against ancestor Ling Su. I don't know. Song Yin shook her head. She didn't know how to answer Wang Sheng. She really didn't know. Even the clan's secret records didn't record the reason. How could Song Yin guess how her ancestor had acted 500 years ago? Could it be that Song Yin had to admit that the ancestors of the various families had attacked the Lin family out of jealousy? Perhaps it was for this reason that the family's secret records didn't mention the reason for the attack. Song Yin even guessed that there was a 90% chance that it was because of jealousy. But this wasn't something glorious, so they wouldn't write it down and pass it on to their descendants. You have to know. Wang Sheng gave Song Yin an answer with a bitter smile. Not only you, the 8 big families, including the royal family, must give a reasonable explanation. Why? Hearing Wang Sheng say must twice in a row, Song Yan's queenly personality immediately woke up. The 8 big families and the royal family could be said to represent the world's dominant forces. Why should they give others a reasonable explanation? After asking why, Song Yin immediately asked another question. Explain to who? You? I don't need it. Wang Sheng shook his head. But will the old Taoists think so? Will the Laojun Temple and Taoism think so? Have you never thought about it? Song Yin was suddenly stunned. Wang Sheng's words sounded like thunder above Song Yan's head. Yes, they must have an explanation, and it must be a reasonable explanation for Taoism and ancestor Ling Su. Otherwise, the Laojun Temple would definitely worry that the big families would repeat what happened 500 years ago. If the explanation wasn't in place or in time, and the Laojun Temple really wanted to take the initiative, then the consequences, the Dai family's palace, was proof. And what Song Yin knew was that there were only 2 people who caused the damage to the Dai family's palace. One was ancestor Ling Su, and the other was Wang Sheng. The 2 of them were already so terrifying. If the Laojun Temple really went all out, some of the consequences would be so serious that Song Yin didn't dare to imagine. If not for Wang Sheng's reminder, Song Yin probably wouldn't have noticed this problem. The other families would definitely be focused on improving the cultivation of their descendants so that they could unlock the core secret of the ground of thousand despair. They wouldn't have thought so thoroughly. Perhaps they didn't even know that when their ancestors left behind the secret of the ground of thousand despair, they also left behind such a huge hidden danger. Before it was completely solved, the secret of the ground of thousand despair should not even think about thinking about it. Did they really think that the Laojun Temple and Taoism would let them solve the secret and obtain stronger power to deal with them? Starting a war with Taoism at this juncture. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know how stupid that was. Therefore, the only thing they could do, or perhaps the best solution, was for all the families to unite and search through the ancestral records of each family to find out what was the reason for the attack back then. Was it really because of the jealousy of the big families? Having a reasonable reason was more important than anything else. What answer do you hope for? Song Yin asked Wang Sheng, her tone a little more anxious. She was afraid that Wang Sheng would say an answer that she didn't want to hear, and they would become strangers from then on. I don't know. Wang Sheng also shook his head. But I don't hope that it's just because she is the world's #1 expert. Song Yin let out a long breath and nodded. This was similar to what Song Yin had thought. He stood up and knocked on the door twice. The door opened, and 2 maids and 2 guards walked in with their heads lowered. The maids and guards split up to help Wang Sheng and Song Yin put on their clothes. In the blink of an eye, Song Yin had returned to the high and mighty Duchess. The girl in the dream was in no condition to answer any of Wang Sheng's questions. Therefore, Wang Sheng could only look for answers from the big families. He really hoped that there would be a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, when he killed the girl in the dream, Wang Sheng would turn around and kill the big families. No one could torture the girl in the dream for 500 years without paying a price. The girl in the dream no longer had the ability to demand a price, but Wang Sheng did. When that time came, Wang Sheng would become the enemy of the whole world. Chapter 1365. Song Yin did not leave in a hurry. This matter was not urgent. It was important, but not urgent. As long as everyone discussed it within a few days, it would be fine. The reason why Wang Sheng asked Song Yin this question was not because he wanted to place old Taoist Ling Su and Lao Junguan on the opposite side of the various large families, but because he wanted to know the true reason why they had acted against the Lin family back then. Of course, Lao Junguan might have thought about this concern that Wang Sheng raised. Taoists who could survive for thousands of years in this world were not fools who did not care about worldly affairs or the situation of the world. Since the Lin family had already been taught a lesson, how could they not learn from it? In the past, the old Taoists did not show such a crushing difference in strength. So even if everyone knew that old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was indeed very high, they only thought that he was at the peak of the 9th degree realm. They did not expect that the old Taoist had actually surpassed the limits of common sense and became an expert that everyone could only look up to. Speaking of which, this was also because of Wang Sheng's request to let the old Taoist make a big fuss so as to attract the attention of the various clans. The old Taoist carried it out without any hesitation, so of course Wang Sheng had to help the old Taoist clear up any future troubles. There were also people from the various clans stationed in Carefree City, so Song Yin easily gathered the representatives from the various clans. Song Yin asked Wang Sheng's question again, but this time it was the various clans who started to have a headache. Countless birds quickly left Carefree City and flew towards the various countries, bringing Song Yin's question to the various monarchs. Just as Wang Sheng said, this question was very important, and there must be an answer, otherwise the Taoists would definitely be uneasy. Of course, the various clans were not any better. If the Taoists were uneasy, would they be at ease? All the elders who were qualified to read the clan's secret ancient books gathered in the clan's secret library and carefully rummaged through it. What was the reason back then? Was it because the ancestors of the various clans were jealous? This reason actually did not make sense. Even if 1 or 2 clans were jealous, it was impossible for all clans to be jealous. There must be a deeper reason behind this. At least, Wang Sheng remembered that the old Taoists seemed to have mentioned that there were some unworthy disciples of the Lin family who used the reputation of the Lin family's #1 expert to run amok outside. It seemed like both sides had their own reasons. The Shi clan and Gan clan didn't stop because of this. After sending the news to the capital, they sent people to respectfully send greeting cards, hoping to make an appointment with Wang Sheng. The elders of the 2 clans would soon come to meet with Wang Sheng. Of course, Wang Sheng wouldn't refuse, since they were going to cooperate anyway. Why not cooperate with a few forces that he had worked with before? This would save him the trouble of breaking in some things. They probably already knew the rules, so there was no need for Wang Sheng to waste too much effort. Of course, Wang Sheng had to repay the 2 families for not sending experts to harm Wang Sheng when he left the capital. The importance of this issue exceeded Wang Sheng's expectations. Before the third day, Song Yin came to Wang Sheng's residence again. Looks like there's good news. The moment Song Yin entered the room, Wang Sheng saw the radiant expression on her face. He couldn't help but smile. Indeed, Song Yin really heaved a sigh of relief. The records that the various clans had found made Song Yin and the rulers of the various countries completely relaxed. As soon as she received the news, Song Yin couldn't wait to rush to Wang Sheng's place. Have you found something? Wang Sheng was actually also trying to get rid of any future troubles. Seeing Song Yin happy, Wang Sheng was also happy. All the clans went back to investigate, Song Yin replied quickly. It's not just the 8 great clans. The royal family and the other small clans that experienced the incident also went back and searched carefully. They finally found the source. Wang Sheng asked Song Yin to take a seat in the living room. Song Yin's 2 handmaidens continued to take over Wang Sheng's handmaiden's place. They chased Wang Sheng's handmaidens away and served Song Yin some fragrant tea. After Song Yin took a few sips, Song Yin finally spoke. What happened back then was indeed caused by a few experts' jealousy. Song Yin didn't deny that the ancestors of the various clans were jealous. After all, he was the #1 expert in the world. It was normal for others to be jealous. What's the real reason? Wang Sheng wasn't surprised to hear that there were people who were jealous. It would be abnormal if there really wasn't a reason at all. They couldn't survive. Song Yin revealed a bitter smile and sighed slightly. Back then, the Lin clan had already oppressed the various clans to the point where they couldn't survive. They could only resist or die. Tell me the details. Wang Sheng nodded. This should be a relatively reliable reason. Otherwise, there were many things that couldn't be explained. Song Yin didn't hide anything. After she sorted out the information from the various clans, she talked endlessly to Wang Sheng. Back then, the ancestor of the Song clan did not leave behind a reason, but many of the smaller sects remembered it very clearly. The royal family also had a batch of records. Of the 8 great clans, 3 had detailed records. It was just that they had been tossed into a corner and not received much attention. If Wang Sheng had not asked about it this time, it was likely that no one would be willing to flip through those records that had shamed their clan. The Lin clan back then wasn't that strong at the beginning. They even had an ally with the royal family of the previous dynasty. In other words, the Lin clan was just a dog of the previous dynasty's royal family. That year, the Lin clan gave birth to a concubine daughter that the entire family didn't care about. She wasn't even a concubine daughter, but an illegitimate daughter. She was born from a maid and was looked down upon by the entire Lin clan. Especially after she fused with a mediocre spirit, she became a piece of trash that anyone could step on. No one would have thought that this illegitimate daughter would grow into a super expert in just a few years. No one knew what her original source spirit was, but later she gave her own source spirit a name, Phoenix. In just half a year, the peerless expert of the Lin clan challenged the experts of almost all the other clans, including the royal family of the previous dynasty. It could be said that almost all the experts in the world were defeated by this female expert of the Lin clan. There were countless experts who died in her hands who weren't convinced. From then on, the Lin clan began to rise, and even the royal family began to wantonly suppress the various clans and sections. This was not all. Many people of the Lin clan, under the banner of the peerless expert of the Lin clan, ran amok everywhere. At this time, the expert of the Lin clan went into seclusion for some unknown reason, which led to the arrogance and despotism of the Lin clan. In the end, all the clans were bullied until they couldn't bear it anymore and could only rise up to resist. They joined hands and killed their way into the Lin clan. Chapter 1366. What are they doing this for? Wang Sheng asked. Seeing Song Yan's puzzled expression, Wang Sheng added, Why would the Lin family do this? What's in it for them? When Wang Sheng was analyzing the motives of others, he would always consider the starting point first. No matter what, as long as one was a normal person, there would always be a starting point, right? It could be for benefits, reputation, or face. It was impossible to act without a motive, right? Perhaps he wants to dominate the world? Song Yin replied with some uncertainty. Why not the royal family? Wang Xing shook his head with a smile. If they can oppress all the clans and sects in the world to the point where they have no choice but to resist, it would only take a few words for them to abolish the royal family. Wouldn't that be even more straightforward? I don't believe that the previous dynasty's emperor had no control over the world. Perhaps they wanted revenge. Song Yin let out a long sigh and told him what she knew. I see. Wang Xing nodded with a smile. Revenge. It seems that those ancestors of yours have bullied many people in the past. What else could Song Yin say? It was right for her ancestors to bully the Lin family, but not right for the Lin family to retaliate. At this time, she could only be speechless. What about the royal family of the previous dynasty? Wang Xing asked. What role do they play in this? What would the royal family think if their lackeys suddenly rose to prominence, and a super expert appeared in their family? The world's most powerful expert. Wang Sheng had interacted with the emperor many times, and he had a good grasp of the emperor's thoughts. This was a completely uncontrollable risk. No matter what, they had to find a way to suppress it, right? In the beginning, the royal family of the previous dynasty was very happy, and they used this opportunity to suppress the other parties. As long as it did not involve her ancestors, Song Yin immediately became talkative. But after a period of time, they also became very wary of the Lin family and took great precautions against them. But after all, they are still on the same side. Before they shed all pretense of cordiality, they were relatively tolerant. Actually, the royal family of the previous dynasty played a part in annihilating the Lin family, right? Wang Xing asked, a little amused. This kind of thing did not happen in this world. In the history of Earth, there had been countless cases of self-destruction. Yes, Song Yin did not hide anything. The royal family of the previous dynasty had already risen to power 500 years ago. Was there a need to whitewash them at this time? It was already good enough that Song Yin didn't say anything unpleasant to them. They were also one of the initiators, and they were very proactive. That's all. Wang Sheng asked Song Yin, feeling a little dispirited. That's all. That's not all. Song Yin shook her head. Some of the Lin clan's inner circle as well. Inside the Lin family? Wang Sheng was taken aback for a moment before realization dawned on him. That's right. A fortress is the easiest to be breached from the inside. The Lin family must have been destroyed by someone from the inside who colluded with outsiders. Song Yin, you have to be careful too. Don't make the same mistake your father made. The Song family was also a powerful family in the past. But in the 10 years after Song Honda brought people into the grounds of Thousand Despair, the Song family was suppressed by the other families. A third-degree realm young master of the Dai family dared to bring people to snatch Song Yin away. If this wasn't the result of the Song family's internal strife, who would believe it? The Lin family was originally in power, but this illegitimate daughter of the Lin family suddenly rose so strongly that a few side branches rose to high positions. The direct descendants were naturally dissatisfied. Song Yin only nodded at Wang Sheng's reminder. She then explained some of the Lin family's internal strife. Some of them also colluded with the royal family to suppress the side branches. In other words, there were many reasons for the various families to unite to destroy the Lin family. It wasn't as simple as the Lin family or a single family. Wang Sheng touched his chin and asked Song Yin, is that right? That's about it. Song Yin replied with a smile. So, the old Supreme Lord Temple and Ancestor Ling Su don't have to worry about what happened 500 years ago happening again. Because the old Supreme Lord Temple is different from the Lin family. As long as we don't provoke them, they definitely won't care about us. These secret original records have already been shipped. They will be sent to the old Supreme Lord Temple in a few days. Song Yin was especially relaxed because she had solved a big problem. After the old Supreme Lord read it and combined it with the secret records of the Tao sect, he should believe it. As long as you think it's okay. Wang Sheng didn't comment on the possible reaction of the old Supreme Lord Temple. Don't you believe it? Song Yin was a little dissatisfied with Wang Sheng's attitude. This is a conclusion that we came up with after gathering the secret ancient records of at least 10 families. You still don't believe it? I believe it. Why not? Wang Xing knew that Song Yin was very serious, so he just smiled at her. He counted with his fingers and said, "Look, I'll help you explain the reason why you all gathered here. Sum it up." Song Yin snorted angrily and looked straight at Wang Sheng, waiting for his conclusion. "The Lin family has the world's #1 expert, but you don't, so some people are jealous. This accounts for 10%. Wang Sheng really began to count with his fingers. The Lin family is unforgiving and retaliates crazily, causing everyone to be unable to bear it and rise up to resist. This accounts for 30%. The imperial family of the previous dynasty was afraid of guessing and suppressing them. This accounts for 10%. There are people within the Lin family who colluded with foreign enemies. This also accounts for 10%. What about the remaining 40%? Song Yin couldn't help but blurt out when she saw Wang Sheng count off 6 fingers and stop counting. The remaining 40% is the part that you don't want to say. Wang Sheng smiled. There were only him, Song Yin, and a few of Song Yan's confidants here, so there was no need for Wang Sheng to hide these things. Song Yin blushed as if she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just asked, "What didn't we say?" Benefits. Wang Sheng and Song Yin didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the heart of the matter. "You didn't tell us the benefits of destroying the Lin family." "What benefits could there be?" Song Yin muttered indignantly. "It's nothing more than not being bullied and not having to live in fear." "Then why are you willing to pay the price of the lives of thousands of experts to unravel the secret of the ground of 1,000 extremities?" Wang Sheng looked at Song Yin and laughed. Even at this time, she was still stubborn. "Don't tell me that it's just to live in peace and not be bullied. If there were no benefits that far exceeded the price, were the people of the great families all fools? Would they be willing to use human lives to pave a path to the core of the ground of 1,000 extremities?" "All right." Song Yin no longer stubbornly argued. "You're right. This is also the fundamental reason why the Dao faction and Ancestor-Ling Su can be at ease. The Dao faction doesn't have the great benefits that the Lin family had hidden back then." Chapter 1367. Song Yin did not say what the benefits were. Perhaps she really did not know what it was, or perhaps she did not intend to say it. But in any case, Song Yin did not mention anything about it. Wang Sheng did not ask either. There was no need to. For now, what he wanted and what the great clans wanted were the same. They both wanted to break the formation of a glacier lake. The great clans could take away the benefits, but Wang Sheng wanted to kill the girl in his dreams trapped in the ice pillars. However, when the formation was broken, there would definitely be a fundamental conflict. Who knew if the great clans would be willing to let Wang Sheng kill the tortured girl in his dreams? The world's #1 expert who had been tortured for 500 years and was begging for death would definitely answer anything in order to free himself. How could the great clans not see the great benefits in this? But that was a matter for after the formation was broken. If Wang Sheng wanted to break the formation, he would probably have to seek the cooperation of the great clans. It was impossible to break those huge and terrifying arrays without paying a price. According to Wang Sheng's estimation, at least hundreds of lives would have to be sacrificed. Moreover, they would have to be the lives of experts of the legendary realm. Could Wang Sheng let his own people die here? That was obviously impossible. Then he could only seek help from the great clans. The Shi clan and Gan clan have worked together before. In terms of pure cooperation, they are very good partners, Wang Sheng said to Song Yin. "Perhaps you can work with them this time." After saying this, Wang Sheng looked at Song Yan's expression and suggested, "Of course, you can also work with a few more clans. It's fine if you call everyone. The more people there are, the easier it is. But remember, before you see the benefits, they have to promise not to play any tricks. If they were to play tricks on the way, Song Yin and the others would not be able to tolerate such people." It was suitable to leave this matter to Song Yin. At least, it would be much easier than Wang Sheng. "I'll go gather them." Song Yin had no objections. She probably made this decision after weighing the pros and cons. At the very least, when hunting those super demonic beasts, there would definitely be people dying, and a lot of them would die. It was impossible for the Song family to do this, and it was even more impossible for them to eat this many super strong demonic beast source spirits. Adding in the Sure family and the Gon family, they might not be able to eat it. Since it was like this, why would they waste the lives of the Song family's disciples? It has already come to this. Wang Sheng added, I believe that when you are looking through the records left behind by your ancestors, there should be many descriptions of the formations inside. Gather them together and analyze them carefully. The fewer people who die, the better. The items will be delivered to Carefree City as soon as possible, Song Yin agreed without hesitation. She was not afraid that there would be families who were unwilling to participate. If they were unwilling to share the information, then they would have to obediently line up behind everyone else. If any family was willing to accept this arrangement, then they could withdraw. It's best if each family sends a few people to clean it up, Wang Sheng added. I'm afraid I don't have that much time and energy to do it alone. This was not Wang Sheng evading, nor was it Wang Sheng using the opportunity to find a few free laborers, but it was to let the families feel at ease. The information that was sorted out would be shared with everyone. There would be no situation where one family would hide or not say anything. At the very least, the information that was brought over would be shared by the families, ensuring that each family had the right to know. This was also a reasonable method to reduce conflicts in the early stages. Of course, this was also an arrangement that Wang Sheng had no qualms about slacking off. Just as they were talking, Song Yan's guards rushed in to report that the Carefree City Lord's housekeeper had arrived. This time, the housekeeper did not rush over the moment Wang Sheng returned to Carefree City. Instead, he came at this time. Wang Sheng looked at Song Yan, and the two of them exchanged a tacit understanding. Wang Sheng smiled and ordered the guards to politely invite the housekeeper in. Little brother, you came uninvited. Please forgive me. The chubby housekeeper did not seem to find it strange that the guards at the door had changed. The moment he saw the familiar smiling face, he greeted Wang Sheng and then Song Yan. She was the daughter of Duke Song, after all, so he had to follow the rules. Duke, Miss Song, no matter what you plan to do this time, count Carefree City in. After greeting them, the housekeeper smiled and expressed Carefree City's intentions. This was an official matter, so the housekeeper directly addressed Wang Sheng as Duke and Miss Song. Carefree City will pay the price that should be paid. In fact, Song Yin had previously communicated with the various factions, and Carefree City was counted among them. In the past, Wang Sheng and the Carefree City Lord had a good relationship, but ever since the incident with Uncle Li, there had been a rift between the two sides. Although Wang Sheng could still come and go as he pleased in Carefree City, it was only because of the Carefree City's rules. They no longer cooperated with each other like before. This was also a classic example of a good card being played by oneself. If Worry-Free City wanted to join, it would have to get in touch with Wang Sheng and Song Yan first. Otherwise, the mighty Worry-Free City would have no choice but to be excluded. Wang Sheng did not say anything, only looking at Song Yan. Song Yan did not say anything either, but there was a hint of reluctance in her eyes. It had already reached the closing stage. Apart from the 8 great clans, not any random small force could jump out and get a share of the spoils. Although Carefree City was strong, it was not enough in front of the 8 great families. As additional compensation, Carefree City is willing to send an epic expert to participate. The housekeeper quickly listed the additional conditions of Carefree City. Of course, this condition was both a condition and a threat. The various factions had just redefined the legendary realm, and there were only a few hundred people who had advanced to the legendary realm. They were still consolidating their cultivation, but Carefree City could already send an epic expert to participate. This undoubtedly made Song Yin feel pressured. Song Yan's expression immediately changed. If such an epic expert were to participate, who would be in charge? Who would be able to command this epic expert? Epic expert? Wang Sheng laughed. Brother, it can't be Uncle Li, right? He was already an epic expert when I met him. It's been so many years. Has he not advanced yet? Others might not have seen Uncle Li, but the housekeeper had personally accompanied Wang Sheng to meet him. Wang Sheng's words made the housekeeper laugh bitterly. At that time, Wang Sheng had already seen through Uncle Li's cultivation, which meant that Wang Sheng had already grasped the method to advance to the 9th stage of the Origin Soul Realm. Thinking about it, when Wang Sheng had first arrived in Carefree City, he seemed to have already sold that method. Unfortunately, no one believed him. Everyone treated it as a joke. Now that they turn around, the real joke turned out to be themselves. Seeing the housekeeper nod, Wang Sheng asked the question that Song Yin was most concerned about. Uncle Li, who will be in charge? Chapter 1368. Of course I will listen to the Duke. The housekeeper answered with a smile, without any hesitation. What if he doesn't listen? Wang Sheng had always been one to speak his mind. How could he not bring it up at this moment? He directly asked, who can punish him? An epic realm expert, moreover one who had reached the epic realm many years ago, was definitely an invincible existence among a group of legendary realm experts. Wang Sheng's question of who to listen to was actually a difficult contradiction to solve. Logically speaking, when going on a mission, one would definitely listen to the person with the highest cultivation. This was the rule of the world. The strong would take all, while the weak could only listen obediently. Unless you could make others obedient, you could only do so. Wang Sheng's words in the grounds of Thousand Despair were absolute, because those who disobeyed him were all killed. Wang Sheng's words were the golden rule in the grounds of Thousand Despair. Who dared to disobey him? But it was different now. Up until now, everyone had more or less grasped the survival experience in the grounds of Thousand Despair. Even without Wang Sheng, they could still move freely in the grounds of Thousand Despair. The most obvious example was Long-Legged Aki, a mere 6th-degree realm assassin. She was practically the only person who could keep up with Wang Sheng's pace in the grounds of Thousand Despair. Uncle Li's cultivation was already overwhelming. In the grounds of Thousand Despair, there was no one who could match up to him. Even if it was an army of man-eating ants, when faced with an epic realm expert like Uncle Li, they would probably be helpless. As long as Uncle Li's spiritual energy was reflected, not a single man-eating ant would be able to get close to him. If no one could suppress Uncle Li, then who would the team listen to? In name, it was Wang Sheng, but if Wang Sheng did not have the means to punish him, wouldn't Uncle Li be the one who would listen to him? Uncle Li swore an oath to be loyal to the Duke for 100 years. The butler replied with a smile, it's still within the time limit. Uncle Li dares not disobey the Duke's orders. An oath? Wang Sheng knew that Uncle Li definitely had some sort of relationship with Carefree City. However, Wang Sheng did not believe that a poison oath could make Uncle Li obedient for 100 years. But now he couldn't refuse the butler's request. Wang Sheng just smiled and asked, what if I order Uncle Li to die? The butler was at a loss for words. It was one thing to make Uncle Li obey orders, but it was another thing to make Uncle Li die. No matter how effective the poison oath was, who could guarantee that Uncle Li would keep his promise when it was a matter of life and death? The butler had seen Uncle Li's temper with his own eyes. He was not a person who took life and death lightly and kept his promises. Why do you have to do this? The butler could only smile bitterly. What else could he do? It's not that I'm vicious. Wang Sheng stood up, walked to the side of the housekeeper, and sat down. He took out 2 wine glasses and filled them for the housekeeper. After clinking glasses with the housekeeper, he said, I was just discussing with Miss Song. The first step is to break a large formation inside. This is a serious matter. We need experts to break the formation. Isn't Uncle Li useful? The butler drank a cup of wine and was in a better mood, especially since Wang Sheng had come over to explain things to him in front of young Miss Song. Wang Sheng had given him enough face, and the butler enjoyed it very much. To break the formation, we first have to kill 81 super demonic beasts. Wang Sheng smiled and said to the housekeeper, moreover, we have to kill them at the same time. Otherwise, the formation will lose its balance, and the 16 super demonic beasts in the innermost area will be stimulated by the formation by 2 realms. Brother, at this critical juncture, if we give the order, the experts from the various clans will probably charge forward without any regard for their lives. Uncle Lee's cultivation is so high. When the time comes, will Uncle Lee go? The housekeeper immediately understood. In this situation, it was impossible for no one to die. Even if they outnumbered the enemy, they would still have to pay a price. If a chaotic battle broke out, it would depend on luck. Uncle Lee himself had entered the core of the land of 1,000 despair to observe the super demonic beasts. Even he could not say for sure that he could win. Would Uncle Lee listen to Wang Sheng's orders when the time came? This was not Wang Sheng's intention to send Uncle Lee to his death. As long as he wanted to join in the secret of the core of the land of 1,000 despair, he would have to pay the price. He wanted to take a share with empty promises and see if the great families would agree to it or not. To put it bluntly, when others were risking their lives, how could the worry-free city guarantee that Uncle Lee would do the same? It was as simple as that. Brother, once this problem is solved, the worry-free city can join at any time. Wang Sheng did not beat around the bush with the housekeeper, but we can only do it before we act. If we miss this opportunity, we won't get another one. The housekeeper understood this. He cupped his hands at Wang Sheng and excused himself to Song Yan. Then, he left in a hurry to discuss with the city lord. Such a huge matter could only be resolved with the city lord's approval. The moment the housekeeper left, Song Yan's expression changed. She turned to Wang Sheng and asked, "Worry-free city really has a grand historical realm expert?" At this time, a grand historical realm expert was like a nuclear bomb. There was one a few years ago. Wang Sheng did not hesitate to reveal Uncle Lee's background to Song Yan. That Uncle Lee is the guardian of the Worry-Free City's secret manuals. He has been underground for a long time, and no one has ever seen him. That fellow found me an eyesore and deliberately made things difficult for me. I taught him a lesson, and he hates me to the core. You're hated by a grand historical realm expert? Even though Song Yin knew that Wang Sheng had many miracles, she could not help but be curious. She could not be bothered to worry about anything else. She decided to listen to the gossip first. What happened? Tell me. Wang Sheng was not afraid to tell Song Yin. After all, it was not Wang Sheng who had embarrassed himself. He straightforwardly told her what had happened that year. When Song Yin heard Wang Sheng smashing the scroll at Uncle Lee and berating him, "You bloody know the rules as well," she could not stop her eyes from glowing. Even the two maids and the two female guards were dumbfounded by what they heard. You're just a 7th or 8th stage junior. How dare you offend a grand historical realm expert? Song Yin could not help but exclaim in admiration. The man she had taken a fancy to was indeed extraordinary. I dared to provoke the 8 great clans when I was still a nobody. Wang Sheng curled his lips. Whoosh! Song Yin rushed into Wang Sheng's arms again. Her jade-like arms quickly wrapped around Wang Sheng's neck and kissed him. The two maids and the two guards looked at each other helplessly. Then they tacitly split into 2 groups. 2 of them went to the front door and closed all the doors, while the other 2 went to the back door and closed all the other doors as well. However, the 4 women did not retreat this time. Instead, they obediently stood at the 4 corners of the front and back door and waited quietly. They listened and watched with flushed faces. Chapter 1369. When Song Yin turned limp again, she lay in Wang Sheng's arms and let Wang Sheng continue to talk about his feud with Uncle Lee. Wang Sheng hugged Song Yan's body and continued to tell a story. Very quickly, they talked about how Wang Sheng and Uncle Lee had fought each other with boxing gloves at the Changsheng Duke residence in the capital, and how Uncle Lee had been taught a harsh lesson. Ancestor Ling, Su can suppress Uncle Lee? Song Yan's eyes lit up, and she immediately realized the key point. Even if Uncle Lee had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to be presumptuous in front of the old Taoist. Wang Sheng sneered. It wasn't that he looked down on Uncle Lee. When he had a conflict with Uncle Lee, the old Taoist was already in the 12th stage. Now, the old Taoist was in the 13th stage, while Uncle Lee was still in the 11th stage. With a difference of 2 realms, the old Taoist could easily crush Uncle Lee. Then let the ancestor accompany you. If Uncle Lee dares to disobey, kill him on the spot. Song Yin suddenly had an idea. Even if he is obedient, after we kill those super demonic beasts, we can find an excuse to kill him. The sudden appearance of an epic realm expert in the worry-free city made Song Yin feel threatened. With an expert like Ancestor Ling Su in the Tao sect, no one would feel threatened. This was because the Tao sect had been doing things for thousands of years, and the Grand Master of the Old Supreme Lord Temple had announced at the Tao sect gathering that he would not care about worldly affairs. However, the Tao sect could make everyone feel at ease, but the worry-free city could not. What a joke. How could a city full of killers compare to the Tao sect? In the past, even if there were 100 red card killers in the worry-free city, no one would care. However, with the sudden appearance of an epic realm expert, it would be strange if they could sleep well. Upon hearing that the old Taoist could suppress Uncle Lee, Song Yin immediately thought of finding an opportunity to kill Uncle Lee and cut off the worry-free city's hopes. However, only Wang Sheng could pull off this trick. Just like those musical instrument grandmasters in Beijing, Wang Sheng could hold a few concerts with just a word from him. Without Wang Sheng, would those grandmasters even look at a person? The old Taoist was even more so. Didn't the old Taoist hang out with Wang Sheng for no reason? If they didn't know that Wang Sheng had so many beauties around him, they might have suspected the relationship between the two. Wang Sheng only needed to say the word, and the old Taoist would be able to take care of Uncle Lee. What a good plan. Are you guys trying to reenact what happened 500 years ago? Wang Sheng asked Song Yin, not bothering to hide anything. No, Song Yin quickly replied. Haven't we already sent those records to the Laojun Temple to reassure the Tao sect? Don't worry, we're not stupid. Why would we repeat the past? Back then, the 8 major sects were almost annihilated. No one wants to experience that again. Wang Sheng believed that Song Yin was speaking from the bottom of her heart. However, after so many years, the 8 major clans had formed a fixed mindset. They would suppress and kill anyone who posed a threat. This was not something that could be changed in a short period of time. In that case, Carefree City only has one epic stage expert. You guys have to think of a way to get rid of him. What's the difference from 500 years ago? Wang Sheng was practically mocking Song Yin. You still want the old Taoist to do it? Do you think that the old Taoist doesn't understand what you guys are doing because he doesn't care about worldly affairs? In an instant, Song Yan's mind cleared up. Cold sweat broke out all over her body. Wang Sheng, who was hugging Song Yin, could feel it clearly. He quickly stretched out his hand and called out, "Towel." Immediately, a maidservant rushed over with a piece of towel. Wang Sheng took the towel and wiped Song Yin from head to toe. Only then did he drape her clothes over her. At this moment, Song Yin was no longer in the mood to continue having fun. She silently put on her clothes with the help of 2 maidservants. She watched as the 4 maidservants served Wang Sheng. She did not say anything and waited quietly. You guys, Wang Sheng did not know how to criticize Song Yin. Do you guys only have one brain? If you still want to do things in this way, even if you suppress Carefree City today, what about tomorrow? What if the Godly Might Prison also produces an expert? There are experts in the Godly Might Prison too? Song Yin was shocked again. I don't know. Wang Sheng shook his head. He looked at Song Yin and sighed. To forge iron, one has to be strong. You don't think of ways to nurture your own experts, but only think of suppressing others. What if one day, you can't suppress them anymore? Song Yin stood rooted to the ground, unable to say a word. Yes, the 8 great clans are powerful today. However, those small clans and sects have spent a lot of money to nurture an epic-ranked expert. What are you going to do? Wang Sheng asked Song Yin. Are you going to kill every single one of them? Or are you planning to offend the entire world and wait for those forces to join forces to destroy you? 500 years ago, you could join forces to destroy the Lin clan. 500 years later, can others join forces to destroy the Song clan? At this moment, Song Yan's face was covered in cold sweat. The 2 maids and 2 guards by the side were probably not smart enough to understand what Wang Sheng was trying to say. However, Seeing how their young mistress was behaving, they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Instead, they obediently stood by the side and waited on Wang Sheng. Even 500 years ago, you guys didn't manage to do things properly, right? Wang Sheng smiled at Song Yin and asked. Otherwise, why don't you find it strange that I want to kill someone from 500 years ago? Actually, you guys know that she's not dead, right? It's not that I want to hide it. Song Yan's expression finally recovered a little. She looked at Wang Sheng with an apologetic gaze. It's just that I'm the daughter of the Song clan's head. There are some things that I can't tell outsiders. I'm not blaming you for anything. Wang Sheng smiled. Actually, you didn't laugh at me or say that I was being whimsical. You've already been honest with me. You didn't treat me like an outsider either. I could feel it. As he spoke, Wang Sheng pointed at Song Yin, then at himself. He stretched out his hands and made a hugging gesture. This was an intimate gesture that the two had made not long ago. When Song Yin saw it, she immediately blushed. She lightly spat at Wang Sheng and scolded, "Shameless! Who's not an outsider with you?" Song Yin's previous shrewish behavior was now rare in front of Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng found it refreshing. Then what should we do with the current situation? Song Yin was Song Yin after all. She only acted like a little girl for a while, but she immediately returned to her usual demeanor as Queen Song. She sincerely asked Wang Sheng for advice. Wang Sheng did not directly state the method of resistance, but instead asked Song Yin, based on your estimation, if you and your clans join forces, can you block the other small powers outside? Impossible. Song Yin shook her head. Without thinking, she blurted out, there will always be openings that can't be blocked. Then why do you need to block them? Wang Sheng asked again. Haven't you heard that it's better to let them go? Chapter 1370. Better to disperse than to block. Song Yin was a smart woman. She understood the meaning of these 4 words almost instantly. Even if you the Great had never conquered the flood in this world, she understood everything literally. That's a good attitude. After pondering for a while, Song Yin understood something. I'll think about it carefully when I go back. Not expressing one's opinion on the spot was sometimes a prudent way for a person in a superior position to act. This time, Song Yin used it on Wang Sheng. Of course, Wang Sheng didn't care. After all, he wouldn't be the one risking his life. Song Yin could think whatever she wanted. Wait, Song Yin suddenly understood. She asked Wang Sheng in confusion, "You've said so much. Are you trying to use me to pave the way for you?" Wang Sheng had said so many things to make Song Yin form a fixed mindset. That was, she didn't need to worry about other families having experts. She just needed to train her own experts to fight against them. No matter how she thought about it, it seemed like he was paving a way for Wang Sheng. After all, Wang Sheng had offended almost all the forces in the world. Which force hadn't had someone die in Wang Sheng's hands? It could be said that once the matter of the Land of Thousand Despair was over, the major families would turn around and settle accounts with Wang Sheng. Originally, when Wang Sheng left the capital last time, there would be people who would settle accounts with him. However, at that time, Wang Sheng's casual words and the fact that the secret of the Land of Thousand Despair had not been solved, so all the parties tolerated it. Now that Wang Sheng said this, it seemed like he was using Song Yin to spread this idea. I'm not invincible in the world yet. Wang Sheng couldn't help but laugh. At least when I'm invincible and you're all afraid of me, right? We're afraid of you? Song Yin also couldn't help but laugh. Not only did she laugh, but she also laughed heartily. After laughing for a while, Song Yin slowly stopped and said to Wang Sheng, "Duke Changsheng, don't you think too highly of yourself? You're the one who said that I'm paving a way out, and you're the one who said that I'm overestimating myself." Wang Sheng wasn't going to argue with Song Yin. He just said the truth. I didn't say anything. Song Yin was at a loss for words. It was as if he had thought of something wrong and said something wrong again. In this regard, Song Yin couldn't compare to Mayer and Rosa. Mayer and Rosa believed everything Wang Sheng said without a shred of doubt. But Song Yin was different. Her position meant that she had to be suspicious of everyone. Even though she knew that Wang Sheng had no ill intentions towards her, she would still subconsciously assume the worst. This was not a bad thing. On the contrary, given the current situation Song Yin was in, the more meticulous her thinking was, the more she would be able to lead the Song family into an unprecedented situation. However, Song Yin didn't want Wang Sheng to misunderstand her, even though the two of them might not be able to be together openly. How could Song Yin have anyone else in her heart? How could she have another man by her side? It's my fault. Song Yin apologized to Wang Sheng again. The two maids and the guards were no longer surprised by her attitude. Miss Song was still Miss Song. Miss Song, who was decisive and arrogant like a queen in the Song family, was still Miss Song. Miss Song, who acted like a spoiled child in front of Wang Sheng, was also Miss Song. Silly girl. Wang Sheng was sitting not far from Song Yin. Hearing her words, he reached out to touch Song Yan's hair and said with a smile. This sentence seemed to make Song Yin happier than any other sweet words. A bright smile appeared on her face. It was obvious that she was happy from the bottom of her heart. Wang Sheng didn't treat Song Yin as an outsider, which made her happier than anything else. Wang Sheng, what do you think we should do if Uncle Li poses a threat to us? Song Yin immediately ran away and asked Wang Sheng, what if other clans produce a few more? She had just called him Duke Changsheng, but now she immediately changed back to Wang Sheng. You guys are also nurturing masters. Wang Sheng replied casually, didn't I tell you? The resources of the 8 great clans are much better than those small clans and sects, right? If they can produce 1, you can produce 10. What's there to be afraid of? That's true. Song Yin naturally understood the advantages of the 8 great clans, but they didn't have any. She could only continue to ask, but Worry-Free City has Uncle Li, but we don't. Uncle Li's cultivation is higher than yours, but he's not invincible, nor is he immortal. What are you afraid of? Wang Sheng quickly replied. What do you mean? Song Yan's expression changed slightly. High cultivation doesn't mean invincible. It means that Uncle Li's cultivation is higher than yours, but he's not invincible. Wang Sheng smiled and explained, don't you understand? It's easier said than done. Song Yin smiled bitterly. A higher realm means at least 10 times more combat power. Do you know how much you have to pay to kill someone whose realm is higher than yours? I don't. Wang Sheng quickly shook his head, but immediately puffed out his chest and said confidently, but among those I've killed, 90% of them had higher cultivation than me. At least half of them were 2 realms higher than me, and at least 10% were 4 realms higher than me. It seems that the price I paid wasn't high. Of course, it's not that difficult to kill them. As long as I find the right method, when I'm in the 2nd realm, I can kill Dai Wuji, who's in the 7th realm. All I need is a small black bean spider. If I really want to kill them, not to mention Uncle Li, even the old Taoists can do it. But if you only know how to kill, it serves you right for your ancestors to live in fear. Song Yin wanted to refute him, but after thinking about it carefully, she suddenly realized that based on the information she had, she couldn't refute Wang Sheng's words. 90% of them had higher cultivation than Wang Sheng, but they had all died in Wang Sheng's hands. Killing people who were of a higher realm had become Wang Sheng's usual method. Then what's Uncle Li's weakness? Song Yin was delighted. As long as Uncle Li wasn't invincible and could still be killed, there was nothing to be afraid of. So what if his cultivation was high? Could he be stronger than the Lin family's #1 expert 500 years ago? But wasn't that #1 expert killed by the combined forces of all the major clans? Wang Sheng smiled without saying a word, but Song Yin suddenly understood Wang Sheng's good intentions. The way the great clans did things previously, it was likely that some of them were really too bad. Speaking of which, Carefree City only has Uncle Li, and you're already so worried. Seeing that Song Yin seemed to have understood, Wang Sheng asked her, what if it's one of the 8 major clans that has an epic level expert? What would you do? Would you also join forces to kill him? Chapter 1371. One of the 8 great families had an epic expert. What would happen to the other parties? Song Yin suddenly found herself unable to answer Wang Sheng's question. What would happen? What could they do? Weren't they still living as usual? It was just that the order of the 8 great families had been rearranged. Would they learn from 500 years ago and join forces to destroy that family? What price would they have to pay? All of a sudden, Song Yin realized that they subconsciously wanted to kill an invincible expert. It wasn't really because the expert posed a great threat to their lives, but purely because they wanted to suppress other powers and prevent them from standing out. In the end, it was for the interests of the 8 great families. Naked interests had nothing to do with anything else. What threat? What harm to the public? These were all bullsh, *T. What would happen if Worry-Free City had an epic expert? They had one a few years ago, and nothing happened to Worry-Free City. It was all because the 8 great families were putting on a show here, from Ancestor Ling Su to Uncle Li. All of them felt that they would do something to them. If they really wanted to talk about threats, Wang Sheng was actually the biggest one. Just as Wang Sheng said, more than 90% of the experts he had killed had higher cultivation than him. And Wang Sheng had just said that, not to mention Uncle Li, even if it was Ancestor Ling Su, he had ways to kill him. This also meant that if Wang Sheng was serious, no one could escape from Wang Sheng's assassination. If this was said by others, Song Yin would never believe it. But this was said by Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had already used thousands of lives to prove that he had the ability to kill people above his level since he was a nobody. Wang Sheng said that the 6th stage was not the end of the 6-star essence spirit, and now Song Yin was already in the 9th stage. Wang Sheng said that the 9th stage was not the end, and now Song Yin could eat the 14th stage squid sashimi every day. Wang Sheng said that she could kill Uncle Li and Ancestor Ling Su. Then she could definitely do it, there was no doubt about it. I'll reflect on this, and I'll also convey these thoughts to the upper echelons of the 8 great clans, Song Yin said to Wang Sheng. What should we do next? Gather all the big and small forces that want to join and assign one or several forces to deal with the super demonic beasts. Wang Sheng replied without the slightest hesitation. As for whether Song Yin and the others would reflect on their actions, Wang Sheng didn't care. It would be best if Song Yin could think about it carefully, but it wouldn't matter even if she didn't. The 8 great clans' way of doing things had been going on for hundreds of years. It was impossible for them to change with just a word from Wang Sheng. As for the other 7 great families, they had nothing to do with Wang Sheng. They could do whatever they wanted. This is your ultimate goal, right? Song Yin smiled and said to Wang Sheng, borrow our strength to help you get rid of these super demonic beasts. I've never hidden it either. Wang Sheng nodded and admitted it very naturally. That's right, I'm using your strength. Moreover, there might be a lot of casualties in the process. You don't have to do it. Song Yin glared at Wang Sheng in annoyance. At a time like this, which force could resist not doing it? Was there anyone who didn't die when doing something big? Wang Sheng openly admitted that he was using the great clans, but Song Yin had no choice but to pinch her nose and admit it. This was a huge plot. The 8 great clans knew that it was poisonous, but they had no choice but to swallow this huge bait. There was nothing they could do. Even if they didn't swallow the bait now, they would still have to break this formation in the future. On the contrary, as time passed, those super demonic beasts might become stronger and stronger under the influence of the formation. When that time came, the price they had to pay would probably be much higher. On that day, Song Yin went out again to discuss with the representatives of the great clans and the smaller forces. After Song Yin had spread the news, the great clans had sent an additional elder to Carefree City to discuss the matter of entering the core region of the Lands of Thousand Despair. Song Yin revealed a lot of information this time. Other than Wang Sheng's affirmation that they could kill Uncle Li and Ancestor Ling Su, she said almost everything else. She talked about the attitude of the great clans towards the other forces, and even mentioned Wang Sheng's attitude that as long as they were human, no matter if they were invincible or not, they would have a way to kill them. Finally, she asked everyone, if one of the 8 great clans had an epic great expert, what would the other parties do? Wang Sheng didn't know what the various parties had discussed, but after 2 days and 2 nights, Song Yin finally returned to Wang Sheng's side, exhausted. The moment she entered the room, she sprawled into Wang Sheng's arms and found a comfortable position, acting coquettishly towards Wang Sheng. "I'm too tired. Let me have a good rest." Song Yin was a ninth-degree realm expert. Even if she didn't eat or drink for 2 days straight, she probably wouldn't be so tired. It can only be said that their discussion this time was really too much effort, which caused Song Yin to become like this. Wang Sheng understood Song Yin's state very well. Sometimes it was more tiring than physical labor. Gently hugging Song Yin, who was leaning in his arms with a look of enjoyment on her face, Wang Sheng carefully tightened his arms to make her feel more comfortable, while his other hand gently caressed Song Yin's delicate face. Feeling Wang Sheng's gentleness, Song Yin raised her head in intoxication, looking at Wang Sheng, then smiled and pursed her lips, asking for a kiss. Wang Sheng kissed her without hesitation. Song Yin's lips were so beautiful, so sweet. No matter how much he kissed, it would never be enough. It was until Song Yin almost suffocated that Wang Sheng finally let go of her. After she panted crazily for a few breaths, she lightly hit Wang Sheng a few times and pouted coquettishly. "Are you trying to suffocate me to death?" In just a short while, Song Yin seemed to have regained her energy. The two of them were a little intimate before Song Yin told Wang Sheng about the results of this discussion. The 8 great clans have agreed to let the other powerhouses join, but they must all contribute. Song Yin's arms wrapped around Wang Sheng's neck, not willing to let go. She whispered into Wang Sheng's ear, "Now we're just waiting for those small powerhouses to nod their heads. By then, according to the strength they can bring out, let them choose the super demonic beasts they want to deal with, and then divide the remaining 8 great clans into smaller groups." Wang Sheng nodded, indicating that he understood. He then reminded Song Yin, when the time comes, if the Song clan takes the initiative, they can take on a few more super demonic beasts and collect a few more super demonic beasts Yuan souls. It will be beneficial. Song Yin was stunned. She straightened her body and looked at Wang Sheng for a while. Suddenly, she smiled sweetly. "All right, whatever you say." Being smart, she didn't ask for the reason. She only needed to know that Wang Sheng wouldn't harm her. Everything else could be left to Wang Sheng. Who else was more familiar with the matters of the grounds of Thousand Despair than Wang Sheng? While the two of them were being intimate, the guard outside the door came to report that the housekeeper of the Carefree City's mayor's mansion had come again. Chapter 1372. "Brother, do you have a solution?" Wang Sheng asked with a smile when he saw the joy on the housekeeper's face. The city lord said that he is willing to make a solemn oath in front of the family heads to guarantee that Uncle Li will be obedient and not cause trouble. The housekeeper had come because of the matter regarding the Carefree City's participation. When he saw Wang Sheng, he beamed with joy. After greeting Song Yin, he quickly explained the Carefree City solution. Wang Sheng had been worried that Uncle Li would not do his best when he came and would retreat when there was danger. He had asked the Carefree City to give him a guarantee. Now, the housekeeper had brought news that the city lord was willing to be the guarantor. Song Yan's 2 maids and 2 guards were present. When they heard the housekeeper's words, they could not help but widen their eyes. That worked? The solution was for the city lord to say that he was the guarantor? Why? Could it be that such a huge matter could be resolved with just a word from the city lord? However, what puzzled the 2 maids and the 2 guards was that neither Wang Sheng nor Song Yin had any objections to it. Wang Sheng nodded repeatedly. Since the city lord is willing to guarantee, then there's no problem. Hearing Wang Sheng's words, the maids and guards were dumbfounded. Why? What was even more interesting was that not only did Wang Sheng agree, but even Song Yin had no objections. She sat at the side and nodded silently. What kind of logic was this? If the family head of any other small faction had said this, neither Wang Sheng nor Song Yin would have cared. Who were they to dare guarantee the actions of an epic-ranked expert? However, the worry-free city master was different. His words carried such weight that he could make such a guarantee. In this world, there are only a few people who could guarantee something just by opening their mouths. This was because their status determined that they could not break a promise on such a well-known matter. Otherwise, the entire faction would lose all credibility and there would be no possibility of comeback. The patriarchs of the 8 great clans could be considered one, and the Son of Heaven could also be considered one. If there was anyone else, perhaps only the city lord of Worry-Free City or the master of godly Might Prison's Linglong Pavilion could be considered one. Of course, Wangsheng also had this reputation now. Previously, the Carefree City had wanted to join, but the city lord had not guaranteed Uncle Li's actions. Now, it was just a guarantee. Nothing had actually been done, but the result was very different. One could not help but sigh. Wangsheng nodded his head. This matter was more than halfway done. The great families were not rejecting the Carefree City, but they were worried about the epic expert Uncle Li. Now that the city lord was willing to guarantee, all concerns were gone. It was not that the various large family clans were against Carefree City, but they were worried about the epic expert of Carefree City, Uncle Li. Now that the city lord was willing to vouch for them, all their worries were gone. No matter how powerful Uncle Li of the Worry-Free City was, could he possibly challenge the entire world by himself? Even if he had this ability, the Dao sect still had an ancestor Ling Su. The ancestor and Wangsheng had a close relationship. Even if Uncle Li had 100 guts, would he dare to spoil Wangsheng's business? In this way, everyone was happy. The more experts there were in the Worry-Free City, the happier everyone would be. This meant that the losses for each side would be smaller. He wouldn't be willing to share the risk with others. As for what he would get in the end, he would have to wait until he passed these trials first. Miss, the Worry-Free City Lord said that it's fine as long as we can guarantee it. After the butler left happily, one of the maidservants finally couldn't help but ask Song Yin. He only said one sentence. Silly girl. Song Yin directly threw Wang Sheng's evaluation of her onto the maid beside her. What kind of status does the Worry-Free City Lord have? His words are really effective. Just like how, miss, if I say that the Song Kingdom will vouch for him, who would dare to object? The maidservant nodded, not understanding. She was a cultivation expert and a loyal maidservant, but when it came to politics or scheming, she was completely clueless. Whatever the miss said, she would naturally go. Son-in-law, why didn't the Worry-Free City Lord vouch for him last time? Didn't he want to join? It was clearly just a matter of a sentence. The other maidservant saw that Song Yin and Wang Sheng were in a good mood, so she simply asked all the questions in her heart. Because he didn't want to reveal all his trump cards last time, Wang Sheng replied with a chuckle, but the temptation was too great, so he could only do so. Reveal his trump cards? The maidservant who asked the question was immediately stunned. It was clearly just a matter of a sentence from the city lord vouching for Uncle Li. What trump cards did he reveal? This point was not only overlooked by the maidservant and the other 3, but also by Song Yin. Think about it. What right does the Worry-Free City Lord have to vouch for Uncle Li's actions? Wang Sheng asked the girls. Uncle Li is an epic-ranked expert. If he really went crazy and disobeyed, would the Worry-Free City Lord be willing to accompany him in losing his reputation and let Worry-Free City be destroyed? He must have a way to restrict Uncle Li, Song Yin said decisively. Although I don't know what method it is, he definitely doesn't want to reveal it. That's why he vouched for Uncle Li. What I can be sure of is that he definitely didn't rely on an oath. Wang Sheng smiled at Song Yin, confirming her guess. The Worry-Free City Lord had made an oath in front of the heads of the major factions. That was something that he had to abide by. However, even if Uncle Li made an oath in front of the entire world, he wouldn't think that the oath was that sacred. If he didn't rely on an oath, what would Worry-Free City rely on? Instantly, Song Yin thought of an answer. She couldn't help but blurt out, "They still have an expert who can restrict Uncle Li." Wang Sheng smiled and didn't say anything else. Apart from this reason, Wang Sheng couldn't figure out why an unruly fellow like Uncle Li would stay underground for 100 years. He hadn't even jumped out to suppress him when he came to Worry-Free City a few times. If not for someone suppressing him, would he have been so obedient? Song Yin guessed the answer herself, but she really didn't want to admit it. The epic-ranked Uncle Li in Worry-Free City was already a headache for the 8 families. If there was another expert who could suppress Uncle Lee, the 8 families would probably have more than a headache. What was even more terrifying was, what if there was more than one? Uncle Lee had broken through to the epic stage a few years ago. Was he the only obedient person in Worry-Free City to let him break through and keep the secret? If it were Song Yin, she would definitely see if she could groom a few more. However, if that was the case, Song Yin would have to consider Wang Sheng's words carefully. If other families had experts, what should they do? Kill them one by one? However, they didn't even know who their opponents were. So how could they kill them? Destroy Worry-Free City for no reason? At this critical juncture, it was definitely not a good choice. Don't look at me. When Wang Sheng saw Song Yin looking at him, he couldn't help but laugh. Think about it yourself. Whether you should groom your own experts or kill the threat at all costs, decide for yourself. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.